Good evening, and welcome to the Selectmen's meeting for Thursday, December 18th. The order of our agenda is approval of minutes, several minutes that have been around. Questions from the public regarding items not on the agenda. We're then going to have a joint session with the Sewer Commission to interview candidates for a vacancy on the Sewer Commission, and that would be Kenneth Johnson and Kirk Schiltz. We're going to have a number of budget hearings, project engineering, bathing beach, recreation, police, South Shore Country Club, Public Works, sewer. We'll do some appointments. We'll have selectmen and town administrator reports. We will then go into an executive session for collective bargaining and discussing real estate negotiations with Boston Golf. Okay. Minutes. Has everybody read them? And yes?
I'd like to move that we accept the minutes dated October 2, October 16, November 30, and December 4, as amended, as attached, and with my thanks to my colleagues for working on this.
No problem.
Making this happen.
Thanks to you as well.
Thank you.
So I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Questions from the public? Do we have anyone here with questions not on the agenda? Great. We are now going to move into a joint session with the Sewer Commission, and I want to welcome Chairman Ed Demko and Bob Higgins.
Good evening.
To fill a vacancy that was created by Eric Gondiver, who was just recently elected, but he and his family moved to a beautiful farmhouse in New Hampshire, so had to resign from the Sewer Commission. The commute was a little tough, but you do have to live in Hingham. So,
Remember, if I can interrupt you for just one second, the Sewer Commission has to call their meeting to order because they have to be in session. Just give them a moment.
Accept a motion to call the meeting to order.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
this is getting like old hat, so I...
Through the next election.
Oh, through the next, it's not 2 years.
No, just through the next election.
Oh, I stand corrected. This vacancy is filled through the next election. I was told today it was 2 years.
We inquired as to whether we could do that, and Betty looked into the statute, and it's not
So
practical.
just Chapter 41, Section 11
Okay.
says that it's till the next election.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you. So why don't we get started? We have two candidates, Kenneth Johnson and Kirk Schiltz. So why don't we bring Kenneth Johnson up first? Come on up. Should we pull a chair up? How did we do this last time?
He doesn't have a mic if he's sitting.
Oh.
I can move the mic over.
Okay, why don't we do that?
Do that.
Yep.
Use that chair.
I knew we had someone sitting.
Get that down a little lower.
Welcome. Thank you for applying.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background? Your resume is very impressive.
Oh, thank you very much. I've been a Hingham resident now for 26 years, bought a home on Beulah Road, have been there for the last 26 years. Raised two children in the town of Hingham, both attended Hingham Public Schools and have all gone off to do wonderful things. One in college, one has graduated. I was active in the community, bringing our children up between coaching youth sports, on the board of directors of the girls hockey program. Had a wonderful experience here with my children. So I was chatting recently with Bob Higgins, who mentioned the opening, and I thought between my educational background, I might be able to give back to the community a little bit.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your education?
Sure. I have a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering. I'm a registered professional civil engineer. I'm currently working for a company called Bond Brothers in Everett, which is a construction management firm, which I joined them in July. Prior to that, I worked at Harvard University for about 8 years. I was involved in their campus expansion program, the Allison Development Group. And prior to that, I worked at the Massachusetts Port Authority for 11 years and managed the Logan Modernization Expansion Program.
Super. And why did you decide to apply for this?
I thought some of the experience that I have is relevant to the work and some of the challenges that you face here in the town. And again, as a professional engineer in civil engineering, municipal systems is something that I'm very familiar with. While at Logan Airport, I had an opportunity to manage a master plan, a utility master plan. So we were bringing the airport capacity from 25 million passengers up to 45 million passengers. And we had to make sure that all the utility systems were upgraded to handle that increased volume of traffic. So I managed that program. I moved on to Harvard University, and when I first got there, the campus planning was well underway, but they had not yet thought about the services to the building. So initiated a master plan for the utility services at Harvard. I'm experienced with procurement of professional and construction services in Chapter 7 from the agencies, Chapter 30, 39M, and Chapter 149, 149A. I have experience preparing 5-year capital plans, so taking some of this master planning and breaking it down into salient components, into projects, and then looking to prioritize those projects and scale them out over a 5-year period, putting costs against that, doing cash flow forecasting to forecast what the capital outlay might be. Another thing that I've been involved with is sort of life cycle cost analysis. So not looking at just the initial capital cost, but also looking at what the implications are to operating budgets as well as you start to move forward with some of these major infrastructure improvements. So I thought all those skills together, maybe could be beneficial to the community.
Thank you. Why don't I open it to our sewer commissioners for questions?
Yes, you are doing capital asset management programs?
Not so much asset management programs, but something that we have is called operational readiness. So a lot of times when you deliver capital projects, at the end of the project you tend to just everyone sort of parts ways. But to think about sort of the operational needs, so we've gotten into asset management where we're doing smart naming conventions to be able to upload assets into some of the more progressive computer systems. So if you have a GIS system that you're tracking your assets or something like that, but not actually managing with it.
Thank you.
Hey, good to see you, Ken. Kenny, do you have any background or any experience or any knowledge that you could share with us? Just a few words about alternate types of wastewater treatment, such as on-site wastewater treatment plants or individual plants or other alternatives to pipeline and central treatment?
Sure. There are other systems that I'm aware of, Bob, that are packaged on-site wastewater treatment plants. I know a lot of times they'll use those in coastal communities for resorts along the coast and so forth, both here and, throughout New England.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Mr. Healy.
Mr. Johnson, I must say your credentials are impressive. In your employment capacity over the decades, have you ever had occasion to run a meeting where members of the public participate and provide responses and comments and reactions to projects that you're shepherding?
Sure. While at Harvard University, we had the Mayor of Boston had a Alston Development advisory committee that we used to meet with on a monthly basis. So oftentimes I'd make presentations, we'd hear back from the community, we'd gather their thoughts and input. When I was with the City of Quincy, which was early on in my career, I was the inspector of buildings and I was a member of the licensing boards, the issuance of common victualers licenses and others. So I was a member of that committee. I was an advisor to the Zoning Board of Appeals at that point as well.
Do you have any thoughts on the situation in South Hingham with respect to expansion of sewer?
I don't have enough information to really provide any meaningful input right now.
Do you have any, well, no, that's not a fair question. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Gannon.
Good evening, and thank you. I am also impressed, obviously, with the credentials and your experience as much as anything else, too, I would say.
Yeah.
It's certainly, I can understand why you may want to volunteer your services as a member of the Sewer Commission. So you're aware now that you may have to, if you serve out this term and you want to continue on, you may have to run for office
in May of next year.
Yes, I'm aware of
And
that.
you're still interested in the job, right?
Yeah, sure.
I say that half kidding.
Having, all of us having run.
But,
I'm happy to help if I can be.
but I think the general questions have been answered otherwise, and your presentation answers some of my questions I had, since I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you till tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
One question for you. Do you have any experience in developing and establishing policies? Because I thought I found some stuff in here, but I'll ask you, or policies and practices and procedures.
Internal procurement policies within organizations, but nothing out for the public.
Thank you. Gentlemen, anything more?
No, I'm all set.
Huh?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Oh,
No, that's fine.
Betty and Ted, anything?
Well, I don't think that's our role here.
I know, but I thought I'd
appreciate your
invite
offer,
it.
Madam Chairman.
Do you have any closing statement or anything you'd like to say?
I don't. Thank you, though, very much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Kurt, welcome.
Yeah. Same places.
Same place.
A lot of paperwork.
Get ready.
Do you want to introduce yourself and then tell us why you'd like to have this opening?
Thank you. Kirk Schultz, 65 Prospect Street. Anastasia, all over again here. I'm here tonight because I know that I could add a lot to the Sewer Commission. And the reason is that I've seen what has been going on in town, being a member of the Hingham Master Wastewater Planning Committee from 2005 until 2011. And knowing intimately what it is that we have within the town regarding our sewer needs, combined with my experience on the Board of Health, I think I got a pretty good idea what the plan should be. And that's why I brought some of the material in tonight. And here's our master plan. Paul can be very familiar with that.
I have some familiarity with that.
That's what we do. We plan for things in the town. Here's the comprehensive wastewater master plan. 2 documents here that we spent, again, from 2005 to 2011 working on. And that boiled down to the recommended plan. And I can say that the recommended plan was actually written by a lot by Roger here in the back and myself, because the contractor who was helped us CDM, there was a failure in many regards. And so someone had to step up. Roger stepped up, Katie Lacey stepped up, and I stepped up to finish this thing. Because without a comprehensive master wastewater plan, the Sewer Commission can't do anything. Because by statutory law, you have to have a plan before you have any additions to the sewer system or any expansion. So we're looking over at South Hingham. We got a significant development that's going in there, and we've decided we're going to put a regional wastewater plant in there. We need to get ourselves in order, that this has to be completed, and then we need to have a set of regulations and rules in which the Sewer Commission would identify how we go about determining how people are hooked in, how businesses and residents are paying for this, and we don't have that right now. So I can help out. On the Board of Health, we've done a number of regulations. We just completed body work that's coming out January 1st. We did some smoking, couple sets. We did a dumpster and recycling. That was from scratch. Matter of fact, the state has used that as a model that they're promoting. And I got to say that our health agent, Sue Sarney, she's fabulous with that, to move that along. So I want to, hey Susan, I appreciate the work that you've done on that. We did animal regulations, and a lot of these things that I was involved in doing the majority of the writing, because I was on the state licensing board for chiropractors. I'm a chiropractor for 12 years, and we did a regulatory update twice. I did the bylaws for the National Association of all the chiropractic licensing boards. And so that's what I do well. And so I look at the Sewer Commission, what do they need? Well, there's going to be a turnover in the spring. I guess there are a couple seats up. And, Ed's been there for a while. I'm unsure if Ed's going to be continuing the year after. But it seems like we need someone there that understands what's going on, the workings of the town, absolutely understands what's in this document. And of all the people that was on that committee, I'm the only one that served the entire time. And then thirdly, someone that can put information, concepts on paper and write them down in an organized manner that we all can appreciate and utilize. And I think I'm the best candidate for that. So I think that's what the Sewer Commission needs. I think I can offer that. I went and visited the Sewer Commission last Wednesday, introduced myself, although I know them. And, I have a good working relationship with everybody, and especially these guys. 60% of what we do at the Board of Health is involved with wastewater. Why we have these silos that we can't seem to work together, I don't know. And when the seat opened up, I'm surprised these guys didn't call me. So I'm here today to answer every question, and every question they have.
They did, and your phone was busy. How's that?
That's right, I was busy. No matter what, I'm here to help the town. As I mentioned to Bob on the phone, I think my long-term plan is, it depends upon what's going to happen next year with the water company. If we acquire that, there's going to be a new perspective of the water sewer board, and I probably would have a tendency to kind of move over into that area from the Board of Health. But I don't want to determine for the town what's going to happen. It depends upon a lot of things, including what the price is. But I'm going to help out in any way I can. I know I can help these guys out in the short term. I know all the players. I visited Randy today, talked to him a number of times. Again, I went to see them. And I was dressed up last week, remember? Yeah. So I can do many things. So I appreciate you having me in, and I'll answer any question you have.
Why don't you, for people who might not have watched the first time around, why don't you give us a capsule of your background and your education? Because it's very impressive.
I was born here in Hingham in the late 50s. And did most of my schooling in Scituate, and then moved back here. Again, I'm a chiropractic physician. I worked with my dad for 13 years in Brookline. That's where my office is, making the commute from Hingham to Brookline, back every day. I've been on the water supply committee. I was with the state licensing board for 12 years, chiropractic, and again, I'm on the national board of chiropractic for all the states. I'm a board member there. I've been on the water supply committee since 2001, and we don't do motions, we don't have actions, but we listen a lot, and we develop a relationship with Aquarian, Mass American initially, and with Aquarian, and we try to gear them to do the right thing, and set up the nice relationship that you have now with them. I've been on the Board of Health since I think 2002 or 2003. The first time I ran, I lost, and came back at it. I love being on the board. It's unique. We have a carpenter on the board. We have an environmental engineer, and then you got a chiropractor. It's a unique group. So we all bring something different. Again, I was the Board of Health representative for the wastewater committee. I've done a lot of other things, and I'm here. I'm here most Thursdays, as you know, just to pop around, listen, and talk. I did a fair amount of work for the board in relation to the Village on Main Street 40B application. There was a lot of work involved with that. I did most of it. And so, I'm proud of that. There's a lot of research involved with that. You had to dot your I's and cross your T's. So, I love doing this stuff. It's enjoyable. And I really look forward to working with these guys. Okay. And regardless what happens, I am.
Gentlemen?
Is that comprehensive wastewater management program, is that completed? Or?
The Comprehensive Wastewater Management Planning Committee, we voted on it to submit it to the Sewer Commission, and I am unsure if you have voted to accept it. And I don't think you have.
No.
Yeah. One of the things about that, and I'll just bring up Roger again, you know, Roger is doing the chapter on the recommended plan for the plant that we would put in South Hingham, again, to keep the water within the area. You know, Roger's researching the figures for the plant and for the betterments and the assessment. Something I think that Roger was looking for the Sewer Commission kind of to give him guidance on that. It was hard for him. It was hard to do this because we just don't have a document in order. Now, through talking with Bob, we've had a little bit of a communication. We're certainly moving in that direction. And we do have, from what we've talked about, a lot more information and something on paper. So I'm pleased about that. But the South Hingham, when people ask, you know, what is this going to cost? What do we tell businesses that are going to come into that area? You know, what are they looking at as far as the expense of being charged a sewer assessment or abatement? Or a betterment? We don't know. And so that needs to be done pretty quick, because that is our most significant thing that we have in the pipeline, and since 2011, it's been floundering relative to infrastructure. You know, with the committee, we're certainly moving along with what we envision. But from the wastewater, water supply, boy, you know, they've stepped up. But we're just kind of behind a little bit on the wastewater. It's complex, I'll say that. It is complex.
I don't know whether you're aware or not, but we have a consulting engineering company, Wright Pierce, that's been working on that. So there has been work done with Roger on the South Hingham Industrial Treatment Plant.
I haven't seen it. I've read the past year's worth of Sewer Commission minutes, and I've watched 6 months worth of the board meetings. Again, I went the last time. I didn't notice that.
Bob?
Well, I'd like to answer up to some of your statements. First of all, on the betterments, Chapter 83 of the Betterments Act of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts dictates how you do the betterments, and that's what we did over on Ship Street, okay? So if Roger needs that information, if he wants it, I'll give him copies of it. I'll be happy to give him all the information that he needs. Secondly, I don't know if that document has ever been presented to the Sewer Commission. Okay.
Well,
not yes or no. It hasn't, right?
it has.
It has. Okay. Ed, has that ever been? Do you know?
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, it's a public document. Is it a public document?
It is.
Then I'd like to have a copy of that for the Sewer Commission so that we can.
You probably have one up in your library.
When you completed that document, did you speak to anyone on the Sewer Commission to let them know that A, it was completed, and it was important that we participate in that document and start a program based on that?
Mm-hmm. What was unique about the Master Wastewater Planning Committee, it had a representative of the Selectmen, had a representative of the Board of Health, had a representative of the Sewer Commission that was there the entire time. It wasn't Ed. And so, and then it had a representative of the Conservation Commission, and had a couple of people, laypersons that served on that committee. So the Sewer Commission was intimately involved the entire time. I did all the minutes for that committee. You go online, you can review 6 years worth of information that's there. And in the end, we voted to submit this to the Sewer Commission because you're in charge of that. One of the reasons that I'm a little bit passionate about this is because we ran out of money. And we had $400,000 that was allocated by town meeting to complete the study, and we ran out. And so, again, we had town employees like Roger and myself, just a volunteer, step up to help out. And so it is a very important document, as I mentioned. You mentioned Chapter 83. Yep. It's essential. It's required. And as far as the betterments and the what you had mentioned for Ship Street, I'm not talking about that. That wasn't part of the master plan. I was talking about South Hingham. That is the area that the recommended plan covers, the building of a regional wastewater facility. Not the shipping cars, that's something else.
Well, I think until we have a plan for South Hingham, until we know where we're going up there, what it is we're really and truly going to do up there, I don't think we can make any real comment about betterments or anything else. We don't even know what the capacity of that area is going to be. And perhaps a single central treatment plant is not the answer up there, but perhaps 2 or 3 satellite locations, one up in the industrial park, perhaps one in the triangle between Whiting and Derby Streets. And there's a residential component to that area up there that we have to take a look at. And there is on-site treatment available for residential units that are approved by the DEP.
Okay, Bob, I'm going to jump in here in the interest of time.
Okay, all right.
And just one comment. I was on advisory when it was done. None of you all were on the sewer, and it was presented, because
Okay.
I was there.
I was on it.
Yeah, it was there.
I don't
No,
recall.
you don't, 2006, 2008? Oh, okay, I apologize, but, yeah. Mr. Healy?
You know, I've enjoyed the exchange between yourself, Bob, and Kirk. I think it's very stimulating and would be a positive type of dynamic to have on the sewer commission. So we've heard Kirk before. I've known him. I've worked with him for years, worked collegially with him. So I don't have anything further.
Mr. Gannon?
You said deja vu, Kirk. I'm always impressed by your enthusiasm, and it's an interesting dynamic we have with the 2 candidates. They both bring something different to the table, so it'll be an interesting discussion. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you, Paul.
I think your experience in policies and development of all of the policies are very helpful. Both of you are terrific candidates. And I do remember the wastewater treatment study and all that went with that, and then all the interesting dialogue after it.
We had public hearings and everything. Yeah.
Oh, there was.
Yep.
Because I was the liaison to
Oh, you were
sewer
liaison
at the time.
yeah.
Yep, so got to enjoy all of
No,
that.
I'm done.
So, are you, any more from you two?
We're done.
Okay,
We're done.
very good.
Fabulous.
Thanks, Kirk.
Yeah.
I was really afraid you were going to read all that to us.
Oh, no. They're my props, you know. Thank you. No, I can just sit over here? Yes, you can.
Yes. And do you want to ask Ken to come back in? If you'd like? Oh, he left, okay. Are we ready to talk about this and perhaps make a decision? And I'll open it up to comments. You two first?
Well, the 2 great candidates, okay, and, I can work with anyone, to be honest with you. That's important for you to know, that I can work with anyone, okay?
Yeah, both candidates were impressive. I think we could take a vote on who we're going to move forward with.
I'll tell you, I didn't have any kind of prearranged questions, but I did find it very interesting that Kirk drilled right in on, to me, what's the critical aspect of what the sewer commission's going to be doing up in South Hingham. That's a very important part of future development, and the sewer issue is a huge component to that. We had a presentation in the South Hingham Working Group through Roger, just the costs that are involved if we do it in a certain fashion, as contemplated, somewhere around 33 million, somewhere around that. So I like Kirk's experience in there. I served with Peter Bickford on the planning board before he went to the Board of Health, and I think that his planning board experience made him a better member on the Board of Health. I mean, both you guys have different experiences too, so I think you can identify with what I'm saying. I think Kirk would bring some really good experience in a positive, complementary way to the sewer commission, and he's clearly been elected by the people many times, and the continued interest that he's shown in the position, I'm grateful that he's got that enthusiasm for it. So I'd nominate him to serve.
No, it's fine. I wasn't. So, it's interesting, of all the things I do in this work, that sometimes the toughest decisions are made when you're trying to appoint somebody to a board, even though we haven't done it very often. But I look at Kurt, and I look at Mr. Johnson, and I look at kind of guys that bring 2 different things to the table. And I know Kirk's is back, and I hate to stifle anybody's interest in this type of work. I mean, we're always blessed to have such talented and qualified people. It's amazing to me that we're so lucky and we have people in town that are willing to volunteer their time. So my draw is the policy side versus the technical engineering and possibly policy side of Mr. Johnson. I think what I would lean towards is if I had a sense of what the board was interested in, it might sway me. But right now, it's very difficult for me to make a decision either way. So, I mean, we're just talking about it. At some point, we're going to have to vote, obviously. So.
And in the short term, I want both of them. This is a problem.
Good idea.
If we could do it, maybe squish them together and make one or something. I think Ken Johnson is amazing. He could be a tremendous asset, and just working with Randy Sylvester's people would be unbelievable. I think maybe in the short term, the needs are more policy, because you don't, that's what.
I understand.
Yeah. And with this vacancy only going to May, you could perhaps get a lot done policy-wise, and then open it up to the voters. I think both of these men would make unbelievably good candidates. And obviously, Kirk keeps getting elected to the Board of Health. So I'm torn. I really want both of them. And I'm going to ask Ken to fill out a talent bank application anyway for the Capital Outlay Committee. They're always looking for engineers. And his resume is unbelievable.
Very smart gentleman.
Very, very smart.
Very impressive.
To add to two other very impressive people. Seriously, you guys are great. I enjoy working with you. So I'm torn. I think right now we need policy more to finish up the sewer policies that you all have been working on. And then let the voters decide. So there'd be plenty of room for both of them at some point in time. So, I don't know. Do one of you want to make a motion, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Kirk Schultz to fill the
and I think we've got to go one by one by one, but
Right?
Mr.
Get to
Yeah.
the vote one by
Well,
one.
first you have to second, someone has to second the motion, and then it is by roll call.
okay.
May I ask a question? Is it possible to appoint Kirk ex officio to work with the committee, staying in his current position?
I don't have an answer to that.
No,
Eddie?
there's no such position.
No?
No? Too bad. Does anyone want to second that one?
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
What if we had a committee of the sewer and the Board of Health to do that, where Kurt and Ken could both be involved in that, whether you select either one on the board, but a committee between us that we could dive into this between now and May, and we would have all the players in the same arena and the same technology and the same as Kurt's
That would be
abilities.
ideal. That would be ideal, because then you could have both
You could have
people.
both.
I don't know how the Board of Health would feel about that, but
That would actually be, I think, between the Board of Health and Sewer Commission to decide.
Your loss is
That would be
every
my
hand.
suggestion. If, and I appreciate Kurt coming to see us, by the way. And, but again, I think that's just a suggestion. You guys get the big money, so, you have
Oh,
to
yeah.
make a decision. Okay?
well, everybody's got an equal vote on this one.
Yep.
So,
I heard Mr. Healy make a motion, I haven't heard a second.
do we have a second?
I would call for another motion, Mrs. Chairman.
Okay. I'll take another motion.
Ken,
You make a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Ken Johnson.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Then a roll call vote. speak.
Ken Johnson.
Sign language doesn't work.
Ken Johnson.
Ken Johnson?
Ken Johnson.
Okay, I guess we've got 3. I'll-
Prevail. Congratulations.
Can we,
Yeah,
before?
you guys have to vote, so.
Okay. Ken Johnson. I'll do it.
In the interest of unity and to welcome Mr. Johnson into the community, I'll vote for him too.
Can we also, then, it is Ken Johnson. Can we also then, how do we make a motion or make a recommendation that the 2 groups work together?
So that's not really on your agenda, so you can't do that, but
Okay,
you've had
can
the
we put it
discussions,
on?
you've talked to these guys, I can talk to them. We have a member of the Board of Health here. I know he heard it. I'll certainly communicate that with him and with the health director, Bruce Catman, and ask him to put it on his agenda. And if
Okay.
he so desires, and the Board of Health so desires, the 2 committees, 2 boards, they're 2 elected boards, so
Yep.
really they have the right to do that themselves if they want. I think you guys doing it for them might be a little problematic.
Oh, we can't help?
You can make a suggestion, but I think
We're
you
all in
creating a
this
committee
together,
of 2
Irma,
people.
Okay?
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
Here we are.
Let's do it together.
And it's.
We already wrote to the sewer commission suggesting that a couple of months ago.
Well, now it's public discussion, so maybe that'll happen.
Yes. Could we ask that that be put on the agenda for the Board of Health?
We've already asked, we haven't got a reply back.
Well, I think you may have
I'm
had a
sure
good
we'll
answer
have.
tonight. With
All right,
Mr.
well, I'll
Higgins.
work with both
Okay.
boards and see if we can continue that dialogue.
Okay. So you have a lot to accomplish between now and May.
Correspondence from the Board of Health.
You have to take a motion to adjourn if you're
Yeah.
having business.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Roger, can we get you up here quickly for the first budget hearing so that maybe you have a chance of making part of your family?
Thank you.
Okay, your first budget is project engineering. It appears on page 69 of your budget book. And I'll just give you the overview, and I'll turn it over to Roger to give you the detail. The department budget for fiscal 15 was $568,336. The request from the department for fiscal 16 was $569,748. There were 2 additional requests, one in expenses for $3,575 and one in road building and construction for $200,000. I have recommended the $3,575 of an additional request, and I have not recommended the $200,000 due to funding constraints. Roger can tell you a little bit more in detail about what that item is. I've recommended a $573,323 budget. It represents a $4,987 increase over last year, or a 0.88% increase.
Ted, could you just tell us the amount that you recommended? If you said it was $35.75?
$573,320.
Well, I didn't mean the total, I meant the additional.
Oh, the additional was $3,575.
Right, and could you maybe just tell us what that was, just so...
Sure. Oh, I was going to let actually Roger
All right, I'll
go
wait
through
till
the details of that. So.
Okay, sure.
Go into it? Okay,
Yeah.
sure. So to answer Mr. Gaines' question, $3,575 was to cover vehicle fuel expense. It's an existing expense for the assistant project engineer's vehicle, and the goal there was just to transfer all of our expenditures within our department into our department, meaning that prior to that it was covered under Randy's budget. So it just keeps some continuity. Now we're fully sort of covering all our expenses. That was the last sort of outlying item.
Why don't you take them through the $200,000?
Yeah.
Sure. So, as you might or might not already know, but several years ago we put together a 20-year plan with respect to our infrastructure. It covered the existing conditions and the investment necessary to bring those roads up to a good quality. And from that analysis, we determined what the shortfall was in the current budget. And at that time, the Board of Selectmen and subsequent boards have increased that specific item, the road building item, annually. But what I normally do is I put in what I feel is the shortfall based on that study. And and then understanding that typically it's not something that we're going to actually see, but my role here is to sort of paint the picture and then let the policymakers decide what we can afford. So that number incrementally has come down. Last year, I think it was, or the year prior, it was like 300,000. So we've seen an incremental decrease as the funding has increased, local funding, our funding, town funding. So the $200,000 is that gap between what that initial study indicated to bring our roads up to, again, that good standard and where we are currently. I will say that certainly last year and in prior years, we've seen spikes from our state legislators in funding. We received an additional $112,000 last year from the WARP program, the Winter Rapid Recovery Program, which again put an additional $112,000 into our budget that we did not have, and the governor and our legislators also decided to not only fund our typical $550,000 in Chapter 90, but an additional $150 million statewide, which represented an additional almost $200,000 to us here locally. So what ends up happening is if that maintains its current course, which we anticipate it will, where we would receive $750,000 from the state, and we continue to fund our our current budget status, which is about $280,000, we'll be able to make that work, I think, this year, and then we'll have to look at it again next year. But
how's the cost of the paving supplies? Because that was a big deal for a few years, and I know oil is dropping,
Right.
but asphalt stayed pretty high, even though it's petroleum-based.
it has, and we saw a tremendous spike 4 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years ago, and just sort of an analogy, literally 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we could build twice as many roads for the cost. It's stabilized somewhat, and we've seen a little reduction in our contracts. We've got an escalator built in. It's a statutory requirement that we build an escalator into our contracts. So it has stabilized, and we actually just reopened our bids today for the pavement, and we actually have seen it come down a little bit, which sort of coincides with the current petroleum product costs. So yeah, that's a big fluctuation, or a big sort of issue that we have to struggle with, where our asphalt prices are going to be.
The other question I have for you, since there's only one of you, and we've tried to clone you and found out that that's like illegal, I'm surprised you didn't ask for another engineer, because your workload has seriously increased, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any less, especially if South Hingham really gets going.
Well, I think that's something that, we've talked about. I didn't include it. I didn't get direction to. I think that something like that would require, it would be sort of presumptuous of me just to say, hey, I want someone else. I think that typically requires some dialogue with the town administrator, some other folks, certainly folks from personnel, the personnel board, and I don't know if that's something that, if the board and the town administrator want to consider that as we move forward. I'm certainly willing.
We should at least have a conversation.
Sure.
Because everybody wants a slice of your time.
Okay.
They do. They always have, and the workload is increasing.
Yep.
So I know it's more money. Ted is making faces.
Well, you have a $300,000 deficit.
I know.
As we stand here right now, so it's going to get to a point of choices.
Well, at some point, we do need to have the conversation, because Roger's got a lot on his plate.
Thanks. Yeah, just Ted, on that, again, I'm the new guy on the board, but the $300,000 deficit historically has turned it around, and we've had some extra money over the years, and I'm not saying that that's where it should go, but I want people out there to understand that normally there's many, as we've already seen, worthwhile expenditures. I'm sure folks that are going to be here after us will have their request as well. So Roger, my question was, and I wasn't thinking about it until you mentioned it, about the roads. So it's my experience that, and we may have talked about this a long time ago, I don't remember, but my experience is that we may need some additional infusion of money to keep the roads up. I mean, I know, I'll tell you right now, where I live, that there are roads near my neighborhood where people constantly talk, they can't, you know,
They're
there's no
awful.
reflection on the engineering department. But I think the solution, because you guys have a full plate of streets to do, it was discussed, you know, not necessarily with you, but discussed that we may need more money to get these roads done, because this 5-year list that I understand that exists leaves some streets that are in tough shape.
Absolutely.
And I say that without blame anywhere. I'm saying is, where would that go into your budget, or would it go into another budget if we were looking to fund either supplies or?
It would be that 200,000 that I cut. That was to get them to the 1.3 million, which matches their road improvement plan. So if the town wants to put more money into roads, we have to fund that line.
Okay. And so, and I don't know if you have, you may not have, because I know it was cut, but is there any sense of how much, if we were inclined to go that way, and I'm only just speaking for me at this point, how much we might be able to put into that and make some type of dent?
What I've done in the past, over the last 4 years, is, you know, we've tried to allocate any additional revenue that comes up through the process there. So when I look at the cuts, and there were about $750,000 of additional requests, of which I think I sent forward about half of that to you. If we come up with additional money, and the budget process is early, and we may do that, this would be probably one of the first budget items I'd ask you to restore, because you know, the more you spend on the roads, you know, the more longevity you'll get out of roads before they decrease into a failure state. So we know we want to put money in there, but you know,
Can we is the question, yeah.
you know, and really, I think what we've done here with this budget process, and that's the way it's designed, is it really highlights for you folks, you know, here's our additional requests, and here are the additional monies you have, and then you can make your choices and allocate it. So, you know, you talked about an engineer a few minutes ago. If I had an extra $100,000, would I want an engineer, or I want to put more money into road building? You now can see that, and you can make your own choices, and that's really the way it's supposed to be. So.
No, I understand. And so my question was, and we can have a discussion at a different time, obviously, has there been some consideration, thoughts by you as to if we had extra money, say, or if the selectmen said we would like to budget more money for the roads, a number that might, you know, make sense?
Well, our challenge is to try to get to that 200,000. We've been trying to get there for several years. It was, I believe, as high as $500,000, and we've, you know, been notching it down slowly. So I'd like to do the whole 200.
Right, but if we couldn't do the whole 200?
I would do is whatever we could do, 50,000.
And then doesn't it also depend on how much more Roger can do?
Well, I think Roger could well, you can ask him directly, but I know what he's told me over the years is that, yeah, we could do the whole 200. What we can't do is, you know, what if I give you $5 million in a bond issue, because if road building is inflating and we can borrow at a shorter term rate and then pay it off over 2 years, rather than, you know, pay 200 now and pay 200 next year and 200 the year after, and finding that the second 200 and the third 200 are only worth 190 and 180 because of inflation, then borrowing would be advantageous. But when we discussed it with Roger, you know, what he told us is there's only so many roads we can open up in the summer, or we'll shut the town down. So what he does, he operates, and, you know, I don't want to say your story. Why don't you tell him what you do? So, I can't tell you as well as you can.
Well, I think a good example, and it's not an analogy, it's something that actually just has taken place. If you've read the paper a couple of weeks ago, or you haven't, Google Braintree Paving. They may have decided to go ahead and bond a $5 million road building program, which is great, but the problem is you shut down half of the town, and it's a difficult thing to manage. And then when you consider any asset, whether it's you know, roadway or a window, you have a life expectancy with that. So the problem with that is, you know, in 20 years, you've got $5 million worth of more work that comes due, versus sort of attacking the program in an asset management way, which says we've got a steady funding stream that will keep up with the degradation of the road. So I don't know if that makes sense, but if you shove all this money into the system, in 20 years, all that money needs to come back into the system because you have to reinvest in it, versus investing a constant value that keeps the road off of that lower part of the curve. And it's typically the best way to do it. So we looked, when we put together that plan, 20, 25 years is typically what you'll get out of the pavement. So that was the most intelligent way we thought to sort of tackle that. In addition to the fact that we thought that that was the most likely way to get the funding we needed, versus coming to you folks and saying, hey, give us some, you know, $5 million. So yeah, so all that stuff comes into play. But certainly, I agree with Mr. Gannon, just to be clear, and you're 100% right. People call us and they, Roger or Harry, and they say, hey, my road's a mess. And we say, you're absolutely right, your road is a mess. And it's not that it's been ignored. We do have a sort of a objective way that we measure, and we try to get to these roads. And that information, incidentally, how we do that is on the town website and in a PowerPoint presentation. But we try as best we can to explain to them that it's in the plan. It's going to take some time. Yeah.
Quick question.
Sure.
So, if the budgeted amount now for the next year, if we look at that versus say last year, are we looking at kind of the same amount of roads being done? Are we looking at an increase in the number of roads? Without going through all the numbers, do we know whether it's kind of a 15 a year or 10 a year or whatever it is? Is that?
Well, we did about it was exactly 5.75 miles of roadway last year, and a lot of that, and the amount of roads that get done, or miles that get done, it's largely dependent on whether it's full depth reclamation, which is a more expensive approach, or a level and microsurfacing. But on average, I would say that we try to get at least 10 roads done, between 8 and 10 roads done. And sometimes when we see this additional infusion of money, we try to get on roads that are really in bad shape, like Martin's Lane, for example. We advanced that roadway. That required full depth reclamation, so we had to sort of pull forward, I guess, and pull that money into this year. So this year we actually did about $1.3 million worth of road work, but we tapped some of the spring funding, and the reason why that's important is and Irma can speak to this, Chapter 90 money sometimes becomes difficult in that it doesn't become available until after we would have hoped to have completed the work. So they let us know you're going to get your $750,000, but it doesn't become available until they actually fund it. Our legislators fund it, so that might not become available until June, July, in some cases August. And we try to be off the roads by then, before school starts. So we bring some of that money, we hold on to half of that and start the work in early April, so that when that second round of money comes in, we can continue our work, but we're always carrying something forward, so we're not waiting until August to start work. Sorry for the long answer.
Last thing, could you, and I don't know if it's something that may be typically considered before we vote on the budget, but maybe something considered, in case there's extra money. I don't know which scenario. I'm thinking as we're talking about it, but could you maybe get back to Ted or to me or whoever about what might work if there was a slight uptick in the funding, where it wouldn't shut the town down? Obviously, we don't want that, but we want to try to accommodate and respond to the residents who have concerns about safety for people walking, people biking. There's a lot of activity on our roads in our neighborhood. So it just, maybe you said it, get back to me and say, Paul, this is what we might be able to do if we had the money, without causing disruptions in town.
What I might recommend is, because the board hasn't seen it this year, is, and I know you have not seen it, is Roger's presentation on the road building budget and the plan, and
in January.
how roads degrade and the inventory and how he approaches it, because I think that'll really help you see, and you're hitting the nail right on the head. Are we going to spend this extra $200,000? Are we going to take it from someplace else or find the revenue elsewhere? And I just want to be clear that if you go to that level of the 200 or even slightly more, that I don't think is going to shut the town down in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, okay.
None whatsoever. What I was talking about was, if we go out and say, Roger, I'm going to float you a $5 million bond, and you're going to do the next 3 years worth of roads, and we'll instead of paying $1.3 million for 3 years to Roger to do the roads, we'll pay it to a bondholder, and he'll have $5 million to do in 1 year. Problem with that is deployment of that $5 million would cripple the town's infrastructure, because too many roads too quickly.
I'm glad you clarified that. I wasn't sure if you were saying the 200.
No, absolutely. You could do the 200, and that would, if I had the money, that would have been my first.
Or some percentage of that. I just think that as elected officials, I like to be able to respond when residents come with legitimate concerns, and I think it's wherever you live, Braintree, Boston, Hingham, there's always issues about roads and repairs and so forth, and to the extent we can do that and be responsive to them, I would like to take a look at it.
And I agree with that. Roger's also correct, and when he gets the money, and he's been very helpful. I sit on an MMA committee that has been trying to work with the legislature to move up the dates on which the money is released. Because I didn't know that it's kind of a wish and a promise.
Right.
Until you get it sometime in the summer, and that's almost too late.
Right.
So he's been very helpful feeding information to me, going to that committee. I'd also like you to look at what would it cost and how would you use if you hired an engineer to work for you,
Okay.
so that we don't have to try and clone you.
All right.
Anything else? Paul?
Thank you. Roger, first I'd like to recognize your responsiveness to citizen inquiries, especially in the last few months. I've seen the emails, and I appreciate you getting on those. I have a question relative to the vortex systems. Are you seeing an uptick in those with respect to installation, and any kind of suggestion that that might become a municipal responsibility? And if so, is that going to require additional equipment that we do not now have?
Yeah, so the Vortec units, as you might or might not already know, I mean, we don't, Randy doesn't have the equipment in-house to maintain those, so they requires a vac truck. But we've tried in cooperation with the planning board to ask them to look at other units that remove the same amount of suspended solids that Vortechnics do. And for those people who don't know what we're talking about, it's a water quality structure that is typically the last leg of a drainage system that removes particles from the water, so that when it discharges into any water body, it's cleaner water. It doesn't have those particulates in the water anymore. But the problem with those are they're expensive and they're complicated to clean. But there are other technologies that are available, and we continue to work with the planning board when we review plans that where we call or we ask for them to consider other units that are available to be cleaned by the existing machinery. At some point, I would imagine, though, maybe Randy might have to talk to you folks and some of the other folks, and Ted, obviously, about looking at some other machinery that we don't have that would allow for not only cleaning of the Vortechnics units, but help him to solve some of the new stormwater quality initiatives that are being set forth by the state. And that's another whole sort of can of worms, but those regulations are coming forward. But right now it's working with the planning board, hoping to get them to look at something different.
Okay, and just as an aside, I'd also extend my appreciation for your participation in the South Hingham Working Group.
Oh, thank you.
Providing a lot of good intel for us.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? Any questions from the audience?
Mr. Watson.
Jim? Yes. Come on.
I'll get that.
All right.
No, I'm glad they're making progress. Is that it? Making progress in South Hingham, and I'm glad there's several independent. I mean, there's going to be an independent plant as opposed to an extension of the MWRA, not just for the cost reasons and the long reach that would be, but for the recharging of the groundwater in South Hingham, because all the studies, as you know, have been pointing out that we're approaching a deficit. The basin, the Weir River Basin, is considered to be in deficit, so that any water that's shipped out of the basin is a loss. So what I'm wondering is, do the preliminary plans organize that so that the discharge is within the basin? Because you could be in South Hingham and actually be in, the Fort River Basin or some other. Are they citing the recharge fields to be all within the Weir River Basin?
Well, a lot of what you're talking about, Jim, is still stuff that we're looking at, even the siting of the plant, and then what you're referring to specifically the discharge associated with the plant, where the effluent would go. Yeah. And it would be premature of me to sort of say it's going into one basin or even one location at this time, because it's still sort of a process that we're looking at studying, and we don't really know at this time. Yeah.
I just hope that is a
I think we can add a little bit of
consideration.
clarification. Roger and I, along with Katie and I think Mr. Schultz, a few others, went up to DEP with the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. I believe it's about 5 years ago now. And we talked about this exact issue.
I'm sure you did.
Tried to get some sense as to what they wanted. of course, they don't give you any firm commitments, because it's a working group meeting, but I took away a sense that they would prefer us not to have an interbasin transfer. I think that's their default in the first place.
Which is another way of saying discharge it.
Discharge it here. We talked about joining MWRA and going into Weymouth, and we talked about that in context to locating a plant somewhere up there and discharging within the basin. And from my perspective anyway, nothing documented, nothing in writing, just watching their body language and hearing their words, I got a sense that they would have preferred us to keep it within the basin and replenish our aquifer, which of course is right there.
It's land application, isn't it?
Pardon me?
It's going to be land application, not application to a not discharge to a stream.
Correct.
Assume. Okay, well, I don't want to repeat myself, but I think that is very important, though, that while we keep being told we need new sources, well, we need to get the most of the sources we have. And if you if you go in the MWRA, you're putting it in the ocean. You go into Weymouth, I think you're putting it in the ocean. Put it in the Wave River Basin, you're putting it in your faucet. I just made that up for a slogan.
Thank you. Don't
Put it right there.
put it right there.
Thank you.
That's it? Anybody else?
It was just good to hear that.
Thanks.
Table's good.
It works.
That's going to go down hard.
Roger, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking me first. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hope you make it to the event.
I will try. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks.
Our next budget is the bathing beach.
I see Joan Williams and Ed Johnson here.
Appears on page 126 of your budget book.
Welcome, both of you. Nice to see you.
And I will just orientate you with the numbers.
Quickly.
The bathing beach budget for fiscal 15 is $23,201. The department request for 16, the base request, was $23,552. There was an additional request of $16,320. I've recommended that full additional request. I will let Joan tell you what that request is for a total recommended budget of $39,872. It's an increase of $16,671. And again, small dollar amounts, so the percentages are going to seem large, and a 71.85% increase in the budget. I will point out that their budget essentially is the same as last year, save the one additional item, which is a special project.
And I don't think the general public is going to have a problem with this one at all.
No, that would be
Joni?
getting rid of the geese. We're starting in February, March this year, which will not be part of this budget, so we're asking for a transfer. And he will come down and start doing his magic and finding the nests and getting rid of the geese. And then starting in July, it will be a year-round project, which is $13,320.
So there's two pieces to this. This is, and maybe just for the public that hasn't seen this, the addling and then the spraying?
Yes, but it's all under the same person. And he'll start the spraying after the grass starts growing.
In the spring, right?
Usually when it starts growing, yes.
Making sure.
And the amount is reflective, much larger than we've seen in the past, because the trustees of the bathing beach have agreed to supervise the project over the land that you folks have under control, which would be the other grassy area,
Thank you.
the gazebo and the Iron Horse Park.
Because the geese can't tell the difference between buttons and the...
I know, I've heard you tell them to stay off that side, but...
We did. The first spraying was just for the beach area, and which went up to the edge of the parking lot. And you could watch them. John Thomas was really instrumental in getting this done. And you watch them, they came up and took a bite of the grass up by the 3A. They stuck their noses up in the air and turned around and walked away. It was unbelievable. And then nobody else, they must have passed the message on that you don't want to eat this grass. And they stayed over on the gazebo side for as long as it held. And it holds for a number of weeks, as long as we don't have torrential rains.
Is that the right, so it actually holds through mowings?
Yes. Not,
Excellent.
not tons of mowings,
Yeah.
but it does, it sinks in, and there's a little, I don't know what it is, but.
So of all the approaches we've used, this one is a little bit more expensive, but it seems like it will produce a short-term solution of if they spray the grass, the geese won't come. And the town uses that area extensively, and especially in July and certainly in August. So this may be the best solution until we can come up with a larger solution of, how we're going to handle them in the region.
Ship them back to Canada.
Well, the problem is that, they might be Canadian geese, but I hear they're really actually American geese at this point in time.
Yeah, they're not the
Because
true
born and raised here.
Canadian geese.
So
Man has told me, I'm like,
they don't migrate anymore. That's the problem.
Well, thank you too for really, and Alan Peralt also, for the really excellent job that you do. So let me open it up to questions. Mr. Healy?
I'd echo those sentiments. Is there a possibility that if you spray it over a certain amount of years, that behaviorally will just go to another site, do you know, or?
I would hope that would be the truth. The problem is that they will leave the beach area, and as you said, they'll go to Hingham High School.
Yeah.
I was
Or the
driving down
country
Union
club.
Street on Wednesday, and there they were, all up and down on either side of the fields.
So it has to be
Is this stuff,
nationwide, I guess.
can kids play on the grass?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's one of the things that took so long with John Thomas really doing all the research, working with Bruce Capman's people and the Board of Health to make sure it was safe.
The only thing that he asked was, you meet him down there at 6 o'clock in the morning, that people pretty much stay off for, it's about a half an hour or so, to let it dry. And then that's it, and it doesn't harm animals. It's just geese, and it's just the taste.
Yeah, it doesn't harm the geese.
No.
Super.
A couple of questions. Joan, and I just want to make sure, so the reserve transfer is that we're looking for do some
That
work?
would be, yes, for this year.
Right, and that is,
Because the 16,000 will start July 1.
right, well, I didn't know how much of the reserve transfer we were looking for.
What did I say, 4,000, I believe?
About
$4,000
$4,500.
something. Thank you, Betty.
Okay, so we're looking for 4,500 to start in the spring when the grass is
Right,
growing.
and then it would just continue on from.
Yeah, okay, I get that. Now, and I've asked this of a few other committees, so are there anything else that you, again, I'm looking at what you requested, is there anything else that you were looking to do down there at the beach area, that's not here, that for whatever reason you would like to do?
Well, there's something in town meeting for stabilizing the parking lot, but that's not,
So Alan Peralt's been running with this project, but the bathing beach have been working for about a year, the trustees, on a beach stabilization plan with Roger Fernandez and Abby Pearsall. And they plan to come forward to town meeting this year with a warrant article asking for the funding to do that work. It's really the first step of sort of the harbor front reclamation, because the state has said to us they won't build the boat ramp, and they're ready to do it all, the engineering and everything, but they won't do that until we solve the beach sand problem. So when we're looking at the harbor, we're sort of like marching down the road to figure we can't do this before we can do this, before we can do this. So they have that working forward. And I know that they're working on, because we discussed the bids just yesterday, I believe, for the snack bar.
Right.
And so, they've got those 3 projects.
well, the Armorstone will.
And the Armorstone is almost done.
The Armorstone will be done tomorrow, Roger hopes.
And that's in the front of where the current bathhouse is, right along the water there. All that Armorstone was replaced because the last soft solution didn't work.
Yep, washed away.
Last 2.
The last
So
two.
the stabilization is just on the beach portion?
Right on the beach to, stop the erosion into the grassy area.
And so the sense is that we need to do that first before we think about anything else? Is that what? I mean-
Correct. Well, that is being done. That's just about, finished, actually, I think.
Yeah, Roger said he hoped tomorrow it would be done. You have
and-
to go look at it, it's awesome.
And it takes quite a while to
Yeah, I've
permit
been
it.
watching it.
That's a hard solution that took a long time to get the state to agree to, because their focus has been a soft solution. So plant dunes and put dune grass in and let it more naturally reclaim.
And we've done that several times.
And we have. And what happens is when we put the sand in there and the plants, they wind up underneath the boat ramp after a few storms. And so what Jack Shepard from the state, who is going to run the boat ramp program, has said to us is, we're ready to go. We think the ramp needs to be replaced, and we'll do the parking lot too, which is good for us, and that won't be any expense to us. It'll be a very substantial project. But he won't begin that project until we've addressed the sand issue, because the sand is, he wants to put floats along the ramp. So if you know the ramps in, I think, Green Harbor, where you drop a boat in and there's floating docks alongside it, so it's easier to launch a boat. He'd like to put something like that in, but he's not going to do it if the sand's going to come down from the bathing beach and tip the docks over. And so they want us to address that first. I guess the advantage of having Alan Peralt on your committee is he came from Harbor Development, and he was been working on this project for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's kind of matriculated into this discussion. What you'll hear from them, and I don't want to steal too much of Alan's thunder when he talks to you about it, but they're talking about putting a concrete wall down below the grade of the parking lot, so that the erosion that's happening underneath the parking lot from the waves won't collapse the lot. And they're going to lose about 20 feet of the parking lot, which won't lose any parking spots because the aisles are oversized over there. And the Conservation Commission is, looking at it. Abby has said that there's some concern that they'd prefer a soft solution, which is, I don't know what they called it, but...
They're rolls of something.
Coils, they kept referring it to. I'm not sure what it was, but it was a coil of a I would say a non-metallic, or an organic, some organic substance, and they would use that to sort of build up this natural mound. So when you sit in the parking lot now and you look straight out, you won't. You'll see a rise up of beach sand. Their solution is to put a concrete wall under there, and so that's going to be a discussion point with the permitting boards for a while.
And we'll get a presentation on that at some point, right?
Sure. Yes.
Yep.
The reason we're talking the cement is because the coils don't last as long as the cement.
They break up.
And I just wanted, the reason why I was asking about what you guys wanted or anything addition is, it's my, well, right, but you have to ask collectively, and what I'm saying is that this is my first budget, but I would say it to anybody from here on in, and obviously I've mentioned to feel this, I won't know, or maybe we won't know, if there was something else you really wanted or thought you needed, but didn't want to ask because of the budget restrictions. But that's part of our role, not that we have money to give, but if there is, I would like to know, because if the trustees need something down there, or any other group needs something, and I didn't see it in writing here, or you didn't tell me, I won't know it. So, I just like I did with engineering, I'm trying to look at what the needs are, and you guys would be the best people to tell me.
And we've been asking everybody for what aren't we seeing
Right.
here?
Well, the number one priority is the stabilization, because
So we're doing that
if
at
we
town
don't
meeting,
stabilize it,
right?
we're not going to have much of a beach there.
And we cannot, if we lose the beach, we can't replace it. Once it's gone
Right.
permanently. So that's why we're
Okay.
doing it one step at a time.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Paul, anything?
Good, thank you.
Okay. Anything from the audience? Great. Rod.
So you got to speak into the microphone.
Come on
They
up
can't
here.
hear you on the TV.
For the record, my name is Rod Gaskell. I'm here officially with the South Shore Country Club, but this isn't anything to do with that. In my former life, I was president of an engineering company. We did a lot of marine engineering. What you're looking for, the term is coir, C-O-I-R, logs, and they're rolled in, it's sand that's compatible with the beach, and they're rolled in an organic net mesh, typically coconuts, fiber.
Coconut husk.
And they'll last between 5 and 7 years. That's what you'll get. They're not a permanent solution, but they're kind of in between the so-called soft and the hard solution. DEP is, I'm actually involved in a project left over from a long time ago down in Truro, and we're doing a huge amount of that work. And there's a specialty company that actually does it. They will work, but they'll also degrade over time. So anyway, that's what I think you were looking for.
Thank you.
Just one other comment. We've looked at this before and talked about it, our company, a long time ago. The real thing about the beach, I don't know if anybody's talking to you about this, the real solution is a groin. In other words, a groin. Because the sand is moving laterally, and it's moving from the north to the south toward, and it'll just keep going unless there's a groin, and that's kind of a controversial thing to get permitted. And maintaining it this way just takes care of the parking lot edge, but it doesn't take care of the movement of the sand. And the only way that's ever going to be done is with a groin.
That's been part of the project.
Yeah, the
Okay, so
long,
you're
the
talking
long
about doing
term,
right?
the long term.
Okay, well, that,
Yeah.
then if you do that, then you'll get your, then you'll take care of your parking lot.
Thank you.
I seem to remember an outfall pipe that kind of served that function years ago. It would catch the sand on the beach heading towards the ramp. Is that gone now, or?
No, I think,
There's something there, but
Yeah.
it's not catching the sand.
Not working?
Not at all.
what Conscom is doing is, periodically allowing the DPW to go in and remove the sand and put it back. And that's a little bit problematic.
In the spring, after all the storms, you can see our machinery out there. So, thank you two very much. And recreation.
Thank you very much. All right, your next budget is the Recreation Department. It appears on page 122. And if I can, while your Recreation Commission Chair and Mark sits down, I will give you the numbers. I know Carol is anxiously waiting for them. Fiscal 2015 budget, the current budget they're operating in under is $86,024. The department request was $89,681. It represents, there were no additional requests. It represents a $3,657 increase over last year and a 4.25% increase.
It's the wrong page.
So as Ted just mentioned, the operational budget is just one line item, so not a whole lot of dialogue there. Back in September, we did a half-hour presentation on the rec department scope of operations. So I don't think I need to summarize that right now. Most of our financial management comes more into the revolving fund. I think you probably have in your packets there. And the rec commission, rather than showing, the revolving fund is comprised of 30 different accounts. The rec commission, working with the accounting department, thought it presented better to summarize it down to 8 accounts, more into different buckets of programs. So we finished the year in the black by $1,800. I don't know if just to touch on 2 projects that we're working on for the future are 2 CPC projects that we're real excited about. One's a playground on Crestfield on Upper Gardner Street. We think that's a great project for the community for 2 reasons. One, that area of Hingham needs a public playground. And then 2, we feel an underserved population in Hingham and surrounding communities is special needs children, and the playground wouldn't just be handicap accessible, it would actually be geared towards play value to special needs children. So really excited about that project. And then our second CPC project is the last round of funding for the Hingham Rec Barn, which sits right behind Town Hall. So I guess I'll open it up to any questions or...
Thank you.
I'll start with you.
So maybe if you could just, I don't want to obviously take you off track much at all, but in terms of the revolving funds, are those funds the funds that are used to keep the fields up and working?
Yeah, so for the athletic fields, we charge a user fee, and we pay for all the turf maintenance cost. We do get help from the town with DPW, with the cutting of the grass, the weed whacking, and the landscaping of fields. And then we use user fees to pay for the turf maintenance cost, and working in partnership with Jay McGrill and the Country Club, who do a fantastic job with the turf maintenance. It's worked out very well as a partnership where they do a substantial amount of work, and we reimburse them for the work that they do in terms of turf maintenance, such as irrigation work, aeration, fertilizing, really what goes into an athletic field to make it look nice.
So you said that the landscaping DPW helps you with, or someone else does?
landscaping memorials, leaf pickup, cutting grass, weed whacking is all under DPW, and then turf maintenance is more of aeration, irrigation work, fertilizing, liming, infield grooming on baseball fields, that sort of work.
So does DPW has it in their own budget, and do you reimburse them for some of the work?
No.
Or they just do it on their own?
They do it as part of the town budget. We don't have to reimburse DPW.
Okay, yeah, and so just for my edification, and maybe folks at home, the fields that you guys are responsible for are?
Behind Town Hall.
Yep.
Then there's Margot's 1 and 2 on Ward Street. The Carlson Field Complex. Crest Field on Upper Gardner Street. Hersey Field. Haley Field. Powers Field in the Hingham Center. Bradley Woods Field. Hull Street Field.
So, and the reason why I'm asking you is when you talk to some folks in the sports community, they would like to see more done on some of the fields. And I guess the reason why I'm even talking about it is that I don't want to know what I can do, maybe collectively we could do to help, because I don't want to overstate it, but you know, some of the people that I speak to when I'm at the fields or otherwise would probably don't understand the dynamics of it all, would like to find a way where we could maybe improve the quality of the fields. I'm not talking about turf, I'm talking about just what we have in terms of the conditions. And so if you had any suggestions or any requests, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I do. I think right now it's kind of split up in the town, so there isn't one organization who's kind of managing permits and fields and who does what. And so that there's even a different fee structure depending on which town field you're playing on. So I think that the process could be a lot more unified. I think there could be one permit for town athletic fields, and then we'd have an understanding of the maintenance costs for all athletic fields, and if we needed to up the user fee, I think it would be more transparent to the youth organizations on why, and I think the process could be a lot more efficient.
You may remember in August, part of our presentation was the idea of putting all the fields under one umbrella so that there could be a streamline and efficiencies to the process, and having all the different parties that are maintaining the fields all work so that the cost structure could be maintained much better.
I do remember that.
There are a lot of savings that could happen.
I do remember that, but failing that, you know, because I don't know if and when that may even happen. I'm not. That's a discussion for a different day. But in terms of when I hear, generally speaking, we wish the conditions of the field were better, I'm thinking, does that mean that we need to put more money in a budget somewhere so that these fields have a kind of a minimal quality to them that is acceptable? In other words, I just don't know, and it may have something to do with the splitting of fields. But I'm saying for you folks that you're responsible for, is there something that we can do? Do you have any suggestions for us as to how to get some funding or at least address the issues?
I think for the most part, the fields that we manage we can always do better and improve the field conditions, but I think for the most part, they're at the quality where we like to see. That being said, I completely understand when after a season, the field's been trampled on for 4 months straight, and sometimes the youth organizations need to play even when it's wet out, that on a grass field, it's always going to be cyclical, where during the season it gets beat up, and then the only really rest time is in the summer, where the heat, where the grass doesn't get to grow, and then comes the fall time again, where the field gets beat up again. So really, despite resodding a field every season, I mean, we're doing the seeding and the aerating and all that. Sometimes it's just usage of a field. So really, it's almost not even a matter of necessarily money. Sometimes it's a matter of resting fields, and that's just tough to do when the demand's high on them. So,
thank you. I appreciate that.
Actually, we didn't rehearse this, but to your point, to Paul's point, we're going to kick off the committee to do the master plan for recreation and fields in January. And I think a lot of recommendations will come out of that effort on how to improve our fields, and also a much better understanding of how much money we spend on the fields. So, Mr. Healy?
A couple things. I enjoyed the article in the Journal.
Thank you.
Are you autographing them? It was really neat.
It's Carol's. Carol's work.
What's up with the track behind the town hall? Is that ever going to get fixed, or are we just kind of looking at a vestige of an earlier day? Not that I'm chomping at the bit to get out
Are
there.
you running now?
No.
Waiting for July 4th.
Yeah, 4th of July race, look at that. We got him. We got him.
Nah, you're misinformed.
As far back as I can remember, it's always kind of been a cinder track that it's not even a full quarter-mile track. Certainly, if you wanted a real track, you go to the Hingham High School, but...
I'm just curious.
Yeah. We don't really have any future plans for it.
We can look into the price of cinder, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
I like that track.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you both very much. Well, I should ask, any questions from the audience? Jim?
Just a quick question. I thought the high school track was fenced off only for use by the team. Is it publicly available?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's publicly.
Repeat the questions to the public.
Jim Watson has asked, he thought the high school track was fenced off and not available to the public. But I think it is.
It's open. Yeah. I go in there all the time.
What did Jim say?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you both very much.
Thank you for your
Good to
time.
see you.
Next time.
Chief?
All right, your next
And
budget
deputy.
is your police chief, and the police department is going to handle three budgets here.
Excellent. Uh-oh, paper.
One paper for your files.
All right, so.
Thank you, sir.
Numbers here.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn. So your first budget is the police budget, and it appears on page 46. And if I could just give you the numbers. The fiscal 15 budget for the police department. Current budget we're in is $5,188,802. The request for 16, the base request was $5,443,098. There was an additional request of $50,000. I approved that additional request, and I'm recommending to you a total budget of $5,493,098. It's $304,296 over last year's budget, or a 5.86% increase.
Chief?
All right. Just the packet we handed out to you tonight, we'll just quickly go through it with you, just understand what's going on with the department. The first page you see there is a list of the entire police department, which we're, once again, we're at full staff, which is nice. For a while, it took like 12 years for us to get fully staffed, so we have 53
Excellent.
officers. We have 50 right now out on patrol and everything, and we have 3 officers that are in the police academy, and they're due to graduate in February. So that first page is just a roster of the whole department and all the shifts. So we have the A shift is the midnight to 8, the B shift is 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and the C shift is 4 p.m. to midnight. So we're fully staffed. We go to the second page. This is a breakdown of our calls for service. In 2013, we had a total of 20,854 calls for service, and we, as of December 15th, we have 19,608. So we're probably going to be around this, probably a little more than last year. If the trend keeps going, the next couple of weeks are usually very busy for us. And there's also I will bring to your attention, back in 1980, we had 58 officers, and now we're at 53. And we've been slowly been getting, getting back to where we we are comfortable. So, and then just a summary of the activities of the crime. One of the good things is, which I've stated before, is a lot of the times the crime is connected to the economy. And we have noticed with the economy changing that some of our crime is dropping, which is nice. On page, the next page, on page 3, this is always something we like to show the selectmen, is these are major areas in our town, and it shows you the calls for service. We have the derby shops. In 2013, we had 797 calls for service at the derby shops, and so far, as of December 15th, we've had 754 calls for service. The Hingham Shipyard, in 2013, we had 829 calls for service, and so far this year, 987. So I think that's been a real major increase in calls for service, and the more it gets built out, the more we're going to call for service. It's actually, we've had to allocate, we've actually had to put 2 north cars now.
Now, are they a particular kind that's growing, a particular type of call?
No, it isn't. It's just, it's everything.
More.
It's just more of it, you know. It's, it could be, we've had an instance of vandalism down there. We've had some domestics in the, in the housing down there. We've had some liquor issues. I mean, it just, there's a lot of calls for service down there. So, and you could see that's, well, it's going to keep going up as they continue to build out there. Linden Ponds, in 2013, we had 453 calls for service, and we're up to 507. And as we know, every time there's a medical aid up there, we send a car up there too. One of the things that we've noticed an increase in Midland Ponds is elderly scams. We're up there constantly with, unfortunately, our elderly have had issues with scamming up there, you know. And then the MBTA, this has not turned out to be the big problem that everybody thought it was going to be when the train came down. We had 77 calls in 2013, and in 14 we've had 84. Now the thing you need to know is that a lot of these calls are issues with gates. If a gate gets stuck, the bells are going, there isn't a train coming, we have to have a cruiser sit there until the MBTA comes down and fixes the issue, and they're good about responding. You know, they have a real good turnover.
I think one of the things with the MBTA is that as the infrastructure on the outside and all the crossings and everything is starting to age, we have seen, and the trends have been, that's the calls we're getting. We're seeing that trend increase. That's the majority of the calls. So I would expect it probably will continue to rise as the equipment gets older.
And the next page is a breakdown of our estimations for the 2016 budget for overtime. As Ted has told you, that was the request we had, was the $50,000. If the board recalls, that was taken out of our budget last year. And so that $50,000 goes strictly for training. So, that's a breakdown. The next page, which I know the board always, like us to do comparables and benchmarking. And so I've done that with the overtime. And one of the things I'd like you to notice is the highlighted yellows, which is the police departments that have, around the same amount of officers we have. And it shows you the amount of money that those towns are budgeting their departments, so and what they spend, So what's one of the things Deputy Olson and I have done each year is monitor the overtime and making sure that every dollar is spent where it should be. We've done a noticeable decrease in shift replacements, and that's because we're full staff now. So the savings we've been making on the shift replacements, we've been shifting it to training. So,
That's a pretty good, impressive number for you guys. I just make sure people understand that you guys are
thank you.
doing a good job with that.
This is one where low is good.
Yes. That's right. So, and then the last one in there is the Hingham the liquor licenses in the area. And as you can see, out of there's 26 towns there, and Hingham has the fifth most of the liquor licenses. We have 46 now.
And actually, we need more, don't we, Betty?
Is that right? So, and, as we know, with liquor licenses, fortunately, we have a great rapport with our liquor license holders in the town, and, Detective Mansfield does a great job going around and checking the licenses, and as you all know, we just did our compliance checks for underage, and we only had one violation, so that's fantastic, so that's in a nutshell, that's what police department's doing. So if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them.
One question is, have you seen an uptick in the instances of drugs and?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we've seen we've seen the reflection of it because of our B&Es, break-in enterings, robberies, and our the bank robberies. I think with the drug task force that we've set up here is definitely a step to help people. Anybody that has an issue in Hingham, with this task force, is going to be options for people to get help. But unfortunately, we as a community, we see the consequences of drug abuse. I'm very happy to report that we just made an arrest with a gentleman that had broken into 3 of our houses. And because of the eyes and ears of the community, giving us the information that they saw with our detectives, and I want to give a good shout out to Detective Tracy, Detective Emmett, and Detective Mansfield worked really hard in solving that crime, and an arrest was made. So,
Thank you. We're very lucky to have the whole force, because, and it's, those guys in particular, but that's a big issue, obviously, and it makes me feel better to hear that.
Before I turn it over, why don't you tell the audience at home about the police academy? How many classes, since we just had graduation, but how many classes here, and then how many at Linden Ponds? This is very impressive.
What you're referring to as a Citizens Police Academy that we've been doing now, we're actually just finished our 49th Police Academy class, and that's a 10-week program that we provide to the citizens free of charge. They meet 3 hours for 8 or 9 weeks. They get an opportunity to take a trip to the jail, see what the jail is like, and as the chief says, we have maintained 49 trips to and from with the same amount of people, no extra people. It's been very successful, no escapes. We also take them on, everyone gets a chance to go out for a ride along on the cruisers. They participate with the officers, and they have a different subject every week that they discuss. And also, we actually, if they would like to, we take them to the Braintree Rifle Course, where they have an opportunity to get some training on fire, and see what the firearms we use and the different less lethal type weapons that we have, because we do have several of those that we use. So it's been a great, and we are going to be celebrating our 50th. And I don't know any community that's ever been that successful with this, and it's something that it's really great for our officers. Mike and I did it together for a long time, and it's for us, it's an opportunity to have the public come in. We get to see what the public, I want to say the normal public, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but we see a positive side of people, and that's really good for us because it brings us back to the center. We're not dealing with the people that we arrest or the people that we're having issues with. So we really enjoy it. The officers enjoy it. It's never a problem. And we don't even hardly advertise it, and people just flock to it. So I think we've done 16 at Linden Ponds. That's right. And if I do my math correctly, I'm not going to mess that up, but the rest have been at the police station. So
Super.
We were enjoying it.
Thank you for doing that. Plus, that also what triggered the comment, or my question, was the comment about the eyes and ears in the community.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You teach people what to look for.
I can remember when I was a lieutenant and we'd be getting reports when we used to have the dispatch on the station, and they would say it was so-and-so calling about this, and I go, oh yeah, they were in class number. So it definitely does encourage people to communicate with us and get, because the community is our eyes and ears, and we encourage them to call us as often as they can when they see things. So it definitely works.
Great. Mr. Healy?
Well, since I had the distinct pleasure and privilege of working with both of you in the police capacity, I can only extend my compliments. Well done here. I noticed 1980 was a particularly busy year for...
Yes, it was, yeah.
Is that when you graduated from high school?
Well, it's kind of, you had to be there, I guess. I asked a question last year about the Baker Shield. It's a particular shield that's used in an assault capacity on these school shooting. Have you looked at any of that for purposes of equipment at all? Have you considered that? Or?
We have been looking at, and we're currently expanding out into the role of the active shooter training. We definitely are looking at all the different possibilities. We do have 2 shields now, but it's not the particular type you're talking about. But we've done training with ourselves, then we did it with the Hingham Fire Department, and I was discussing probably for this coming year, we're actually going to probably combine it with one of the other local towns. So that we've done, and then in the 4th year, we'll probably do more of a total scenario. Just like we did with the train or with the ferry boats down at Hingham Harbor, at the shipyard. So it will be like a whole overall real live event, basically training. So we are reviewing, and because of our involvement with the Metrolec, we're getting like a lot of first-hand knowledge on what the products are and the testing of the products, so that we can hopefully narrow in on the right stuff.
Well, thanks again. Thanks for doing the great job you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a tribute to all of you.
Yep, no, if you guys are satisfied, I'm satisfied.
I just would want to tell you one thing, when we talk about the drugs, and I think it's important, we talked a little bit about the detectives, but one of our emphasis this year, to go along with the programs that you've been doing, is we've expanded the role and joined different regional organizations where the detectives are participating and acting and going to meetings with other detectives, because we know that it isn't just Hingham, it isn't just Weymouth, it isn't Quincy. These people come from all sorts of areas, so we actually have like task force or different, that they put together, so we can recruit, and when we have activities, the detectives get together, and a lot of crimes are being solved. We may not have the arrest, but the arrest takes place because of knowledge that's spread through the different organizations that they meet with. So that's something we've really picked up on in the past couple of years.
Stuff. Yep, thanks.
Excellent.
I just have a quick follow-up. I remember when we were working on the shipyard, and I was insisting to the developer that the kind of growth that development would see would inevitably lead to the requirement for a second car. And hearing you now speak to that, I think going forward, I'd like the department to be very, very sensitive to the development issues, so you can participate with respect to mitigation and exaction on permitting, because, if we get growth in South Hingham that, requires double cars up there, so we've got double cars up in South Hingham, double on the north side. I don't want to get operational, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
Just urge you to,
I definitely agree with you that, because at the time I was a traffic sergeant, and that was part of the problem. That's one of the programs that our traffic sergeant participates in, is the development, and I think we tried, but some of the money and went to other projects that they donated to the town. But there's definitely an infrastructure, and it's crucial for us to stay ahead of it, because what we talked about at those meetings really came to fruition, that we are having an extra car up there.
Right.
The shipyard, in all fairness to them, has been very good. They do pay for additional officers during the summer on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, and during the winter on Friday and Saturday. So they are doing their share, and they've been living up to their word about helping out.
Good. Good to hear that.
Okay.
I'll just pass on the last thing that, just to let you know that we've had a succession program going on, and as you know, this will be my last budget, but I just want to let you know it's been going great, and when I do leave, you will not miss a beat. I can guarantee you that. So.
We'll miss you, though.
Yeah, we'll miss you a lot. Harbor?
Sure. The next budget is the Harbor Master's budget. It appears on page 63. And if I can give you that summary, the current year budget is $185,834. A department base request of $190,037. There were additional requests all in the personal services line of $25,741. I recommended all of those for a total of $215,778 for fiscal 16. That's an increase year over year of $29,934 and a 16.11% increase. Chief, explain that.
As you know, we've done a restructuring of the Harbor Master's position since Glenn and I have became chief and deputy chief. And what we've done is restructure. The big thing we wanted to do was get our Harbor Master out on the water more and the assistants out on the water, and have a clerk inside the office. We did this as an experiment to see how it would work and everything, and it has been outstanding.
Fabulous.
I mean, it was, because of the workload that Ken had, when I first became chief, we were getting a lot of complaints about no one's answering the phone, the machine's full, and so by getting Katie in there, she has been fantastic, and it's worked out so well, and that was why we had the request for more hours for Katie. The other thing is we've been really, because the calls for service out there have been increased each year, and there's so much area for our Harbor Master to cover, we want more coverage out on the water, because in the summertime, these boats are going 16 hours a day. And it's, like I said, it's been busier and busier, and the thing that the board needs to know is, since the Quincy Shipyard is not doing the commuter boat anymore, Hingham is now a port. And so the deputy has done a lot of trainings with Boston Coast Guard, because we are a port. And with Ken and Deputy Olson, they did some trainings this summer on a boat going aground. There was this project called Urban Shield, which was with Boston and the Coast Guard. So Hingham is the place. That's why they're building that station down there, which will have an office in there for our Harbor Master, which will also be available to police and fire in case we had an incident down there. We'd be set up for that. So
I think there's six additional commuter boats were added down to Hingham, which has really put a stress on that area, and I think it's something that we have to respond to, and I know it's always, the Hingham is actually known, I think, for its harbors, and people really enjoy it. I think over the past years we've really seen people pushing to and encourage people to using the facilities of the harbor, not only from Hingham Harbor, but also all the way to the development of the shipyard. So the amount of call and volume that, the Harbor Master has been handling over the years has really been increasing, and that's really why we want the increased in the time that they're spending actually out on the water. And it's not always cheap. Gas is expensive for the boats, more expensive than the cruises, and they're not the best, and I think the other program that the Harbor Master is running, which is totally fabulous, is I think they participated in pumping, I believe, if I'm correct,
30,000 gallons.
30,000 gallons of waste product out of the boats, which between a new pumping station and the pump-out boat itself that runs around, does all the boats that are out at anchor and stuff, that did 15,000. And that's where a lot of their time and energy is actually being spent, but the thought of 30,000 gallons of raw storage being dumped into the harbor areas is just, to me, is the cost on what it costs us to get, and it's actually, some of it's $11,000 of it's reimbursable through the state programs. So, and that's something that I think you'll see an increase in the gas budget, but a lot of it is because that boat is running sometimes 16 hours, 20 hours during the weekend, just pumping out boats.
You seem to have had a lot more emergency calls, or at least I'm listening, I'm picking them up, especially on weekends and after dark.
Yeah, there's been some serious incidents this year.
Out.
Yeah, we had a few runs out to Bumpkin Island when people got hurt out there. And, so the harbor masters, they have to respond out to the island, and then they've actually picked up on the way out there some, fire personnel to get out there, because some of these injuries were pretty serious, We had the kayak incident where the people got stranded out there, So, you never know, and it's such a big area. I mean, over World's End on a weekend, you could have, 300-400 boats, so.
All rafted together.
Oh, yes.
And I have to laugh, remember, because 4 years ago when I started this job, and I used to talk to you about Hingham Harbor, I didn't know the difference between an oar and a motor. And you would mention these things, I'd go like, what is she talking about, or what is Ken talking about? I said, I find it funny that I'm actually sitting here while talking about the budget now, because I actually understand all this stuff.
I appreciate the work that the two of you do with the harbor master and all of his people.
Well, thank you.
Very much.
Great job. Well done, gentlemen.
Again? No?
Your next budget is the animal control. Animal control.
Dispatch, maybe.
Just reading from the text.
Actually, she did dispatch a raccoon from my backyard.
I saw a picture of it.
Yes.
I actually saw that raccoon, by the way.
I did. I sent them a picture of Leslie.
All right, the animal control budget appears on page 61. Pretty straightforward budget. The fiscal 2015 request is $55,926. The fiscal 2016, the fiscal 2015 budget is $55,926. The fiscal 2016 revised budget. Boy, I'm having a difficult time reading tonight. Sorry. The fiscal 2016 requested budget is $56,684. There are no additional requests. I recommended that amount to you. It's a $758 increase over last year, or 1.36% change.
That's all?
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to let the board know is we went to Capitol on Monday, and we've requested that Leslie get a pickup truck. She's in this minivan, this 2008 minivan, and it's really not appropriate for the job that she's doing. And she's, as you know, she's an awesome animal control officer, and so we requested that she gets a pickup truck with a cap on the back, four-wheel drive, because she's out in all kinds of weather, and the van is starting to cost us money in repairs, so we think it's well deserved, and so she'll get a new truck, hopefully.
She's awesome.
That's her bonus.
That's her bonus. Mr. Healy.
Hull doesn't have animal control?
They have animal control. I think they have a vacancy right now because the officer that, one of the officers in our police academy was their animal control officer.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I understand, I did see a thing of an ad for an animal control officer in Hull, so.
I think they're still using a part-time. We actually tried job sharing with Hull a couple of years back. It just didn't really work out.
Too much distance to cover, really.
Yes, yeah.
And they had too many calls for service, and then it was taken away from us, so we had to cut that,
No. Excellent.
Good, great.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much, and
Thank you.
thank the men and women that serve under you.
We will, thank you.
1 minute, I'm just going to get a little water.
Okay.
I'm quick.
South Shore Country Club, come on
Okay.
up.
South Shore Country Club appears on page 139. And I will just give you that brief summary again for the record.
Yeah, hang on 2 seconds while we wait. Are people playing in the cold?
They sure are. Yep, they sure are.
Excellent.
Rod, you can pull a chair up over there if you want.
Thank you.
Must be really dedicated golfers.
Golfers are dedicated, right, Jay?
Yeah, we had a department head meeting over there
Thursday.
Last week. Last Thursday, it was snowing to beat the band, and there was 2 foursomes that went out in the middle of the snowstorm. And the seniors, there was the day of the police senior luncheon, they loved it. Like, the seniors looking out and seeing the guys going out playing golf in the snowstorm, it was like, it creates quite a buzz. Yeah, it creates quite a buzz. They got nothing else to do.
So the Country Club budget appears on page 139 of your budget book. The department is operating in fiscal 15 with a $2,188,476 budget. The request for 16 is $2,231,877. I've recommended that full amount. It's fully cost recovered. It represents a $43,401 increase over the prior year, or 1.98% increase.
Thank you guys for having us here tonight. First off, I just want to thank the Country Club Management Committee. Not everyone on the committee is here tonight, but I want to thank them for their hard work in helping me put this together and run the operations over there. Our 2015 budget shows positive cash flow for the South Shore Country Club, and it'll be once this budget comes to fruition, it'll be about the 4th year that we've had positive cash flow at the Country Club. It's a fully loaded budget. It includes all our expenses, include everything. We pay our own employee benefits. We pay as much as we've been given it's a fully loaded budget expense-wise. And so one of the things that we've realized at the club recently is that we're kind of at a point right now where we're almost maxed out on revenue. The golf course operates at near capacity. There's definitely a little bit of room for growth, but it's in areas that are hard to grow, like weekday morning play and stuff like that. During the peak times, we operate at capacity, weekends throughout most of the year. So what we're trying to do is look at ways to lower our fixed costs, and we've done that through restructuring and reducing our management team through the golf pro and the superintendent, the golf superintendent side of it. We've made some changes so that we can lower our fixed costs. Right now, that seems to be the real way to be able to show more positive cash flow. So we've done that over the last year. Golf rounds are pretty strong. I mean, as we stand here today, we've had about 42,000 rounds already this year, which is pretty good considering that we lost this year the month of March and the month of April due to weather. That April can be, March is not a great month for us ever, but April's a pretty strong month. People get the bug to start playing golf, and we had snow in April this year, so that held us back. But we were able to make it up in a lot of the other months. It was a pretty dry season, so we were able to keep the golfers out there throughout most of the year. One of the best things that doesn't show up in these figures for us on a daily basis is our golf member and daily fee satisfaction rate. Right now, the number of complaints coming across my desk are at an all-time low since I've been working at the country club. We've had all sorts of problems in the past years as far as tee times go, conditions of the golf course, and amazingly enough, knock on wood, it seems like our satisfaction rate's at an all-time high right now. So that I guess it's reflected in our receipts, but it's not truly reflected. The other operations that we have at the golf simulators, they've been steady. It's a good operation. It's a good business for us. It's definitely completely weather dependent. If we have snow in January, the simulators are busy. If we have a couple 50-degree days in January, they're out on the golf course. It's weather just like the golf course. It's completely weather dependent, but it's a good business for us. It's a revenue share program. we don't own the equipment. We don't have a lot of risk there, and so it's a good business for us, and it helps the restaurant caterer, in the off-season to be able to keep selling the beer and keep selling the chicken wings and keep people coming into the club. So it's a good business for the whole operation. As far as the pool goes, Bill and I looked at, this is Bill Friend, if you guys, I'm pretty sure know him, but he's the chairman of the management committee. Bill and I looked at the pool after the season ended this year, and we looked at, one thing jumped out at us that we hadn't realized. In the last 5 years, we've doubled our pool membership revenue, doubled it. And that we didn't impact daily fee swimming to be able to do that. Our daily fee swimming has been pretty much flat throughout those years, and we've doubled the number, not the number, but the amount of revenue that we brought in members. So, a lot of that's attributable just to some changes that we made as far as the schedule goes, when they can swim. It made it more conducive to the families coming. And also adding simple amenities like sunscreens, different, permanent sunscreens, improvements to the locker rooms. The locker rooms are, they needed some love. We gave them some love.
Shade area.
Yeah. And obviously that little bit after on our, in the heater, we heated the water. They like that. So they come more and swim because it's not cold.
Yeah.
So those things have paid dividends for us. And our lesson program's been pretty flat too. We haven't seen any significant increase or decrease in the lessons, so that's good. This coming season, we're looking at working, our tennis program's a real small part of our operation, but I bring it up right now because we're in the process of applied to CPC to redo the tennis courts up at the club. They're very, some years they don't even show up on our spreadsheets here because we bring in no revenue. And that's one of the issues that we had with funding the reconstruction of them in-house is it's hard for us to put a business plan together that makes sense for us to spend our limited capital dollars on resurfacing the tennis courts. But what they are for the community is public access tennis, and in an area where we have a facility, bathrooms, a restaurant, something that we don't have at a lot of the other tennis courts in town. So we're looking at growing that program with the rec this coming summer to be able to try to, see if long-term we can make some more money at tennis in a partnership with the rec, so that we can make some long-term investment there if it shows up, if it shows the revenue. We also use those tennis courts for programs like that. We had the SNAP summer camp program this year for the first time, which was pretty unique, where we had special needs kids. Just an example of how the synergy at the club works. These kids played tennis, they played on the golf simulators, and they bowled, and they rotated through that structure 5 days a week for the whole month of July. And that's pretty unique that we have all those different opportunities for people up there, let alone, to be able to offer it to special needs children, for anybody, that we have all those different, activities. It's pretty unique to our community and our little facility over there. We're still looking for ways to increase our businesses and add new businesses. We're constantly trying to come up with different ideas, whether it's talking about bocce or, different ways to try to bring in revenue. Because we realize, with our main core things, we're kind of maxed out right now. So, we don't want to cut our way to success. So we're trying to figure out, how can we come up with our next simulator idea, and we're working on that. That's basically it. If you guys have questions.
Well, I want to thank you, and especially thank the Country Club Management Committee for working so well together as a group. And really, and Jay, for you worrying about every single penny.
Those guys are awesome.
Yep. And honestly, the club is fabulous. And I thank you also for the SNAP program. Those kids have never had anything like this. And at the luncheon at the end, I think you saw really how successful that was with the parents and the kids. It was amazing.
It was pretty unbelievable. And I mean, not only have those kids not seen anything like that, I don't think there's anything going on like what we did, anywhere.
We don't know of anything, and we did quite a bit of research because I sit on the SNAP board.
Yeah, it's pretty unique.
So I think it's going to be even bigger next year. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Irma, for your help with it.
Also, thank you for making such strides in helping all of the organizations in the town and in the surrounding towns and helping them fit in golf tournaments to do as fundraisers. I don't think people really understand how many you do.
We want to do more.
Well, I think word is spreading. And
Thank
I
you.
think you're going to get a couple
I hope so.
more that I know of, because they
Good.
just didn't get their act together in time to do it last year. So
We'll take 'em.
I'll turn this, Mr. Healy.
I echo the chair's thoughts. I will say that I enjoyed my 45th Hingham High School reunion at the country club this summer. And I golfed for the first time at the Selectmen's Cup. That was kind of fun. Yeah, I enjoyed that. So you guys are doing a good job, so keep up the good work. To me, the country club has always been there, and the fact that you can run it so well will ensure that it will always be there. So
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Mr. G.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much, obviously, but it's been said, but it's a success story. I enjoy every time I go there, whether I'm golfing and hitting the ball to the woods or attending an event. It's a great place to be at, and thank you for what you guys do.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Why don't you introduce Rod, by the way? We kind of slipped Bill in. We assume everybody knows everybody.
New member of the Country Club Management Committee, Rod Gaskell's been a great addition. We're happy to have him.
Maybe at first, and I'm a non-golfer.
We're working on that.
There's always time, and always hope.
Working on it.
No, it's just a testimony to how
Bill.
important that facility is to non-golfers.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful resource.
And Bill, I have to single you out because I think you and I met in the not-so-good times. BJ before Jay. And
Right.
you have stuck with it and just been a guiding force. So I can't thank you enough. And you're not going anywhere, are you? Excellent.
It's a good thing we don't pay Bill by the hour.
Oh, my God. Thank you
guys.
very
Merry
much.
Christmas.
Same to
Merry
you.
Christmas to you, Jay.
You also. Randy.
All right, your last couple budgets of the night will be taken up by your DPW superintendent, and they appear on, starting on page 75 with the Public Works budget. If I could orientate you on that. The Highway, Recreation, Tree and Park budget for fiscal 15 currently is $3,098,137. The department requested $3,155,796 as their base budget, an additional request of $133,021. I've recommended $54,340 of that, for a total request of $3,210,136, $111,999 increase over last year, or 3.62%.
Okay.
Your budget.
Welcome to my budget. Well, I just want to explain the increases in personnel that I requested. I actually requested 3 additional employees, and that's due to the workload and the demands put on the department. We don't, we maintain basically all the fields, all the roads, and the town's aging infrastructure. Some of the areas that need service to be enhanced in general maintenance, including sweeping, catch basin cleaning, manhole cleaning, road patching and repair, rubbish and recycling removal from town facilities and fields. And this day-to-day work takes most of the employees, which leaves the DPW shorthanded when projects such as rebuilding catch basins, rebuilding and repaving roads, replacing old drainage pipes, and we have to continue to respond to every day to calls, tree calls, patching calls, emergency calls. And it should be noted that we maintain 140 miles of road, 60 miles of sidewalks, and approximately 10,000 drainage structures, and about 100 miles of drainage pipe. And one of the big things needs increase in personnel we're going to need is in Phase 2 stormwater and the NIPD's permit, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination Permit System permit program. There are new requirements coming out next year, which are going to require either we hire someone or we do it with our personnel to go out and monitor all the outflows of all the drainage system, and there will be a testing protocol that we'll have to maintain. And this is going to be ongoing, and what the testing would be doing is testing for illicit discharges. So if someone is hooked up to the drainage system, or if they have their washing machine hose and it's going into the drainage system, that we will be able to identify it and eliminate it from the system. So we'll take that out of the mix, and it won't get into our waterways in the stormwater. And that's the basic premise of the whole permit program. The phase 2 is to increase the quality of the stormwater going into our waterways and into the harbor. Yes.
Not to interrupt you, but hypothetically, somebody's pumping their washing machine onto the driveway, it runs down into the catch basin. Do you test the catch basin, find a tainted source, and then work your way back from there?
What we'll do is we'll test the outfall first, and there's protocols on testing. There's a dry protocol, so when it doesn't rain, and then a wet testing protocol. And we will have to do both. And what we'll do is we'll test it, and usually if there's a washing machine and whatnot, we'll find water flowing through the outfall. We will test it and then work our way up until we find something. We'll go to manhole to catch basin to manhole.
So you see where it enters in,
yes.
And then you'll look around for the
and then
source.
and then we'll find it.
Okay.
Why are you doing this versus the Board of Health? It's a curious question. I'm not suggesting we move it.
Well, it falls under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Works. That's where, I think virtually every community.
Most of it, yes.
Okay. Just
also because they're the regulatory body that he actually has to, in certain cases, go to for certain issues, but.
Yes.
Okay.
Everyone has, I won't say every department, but a lot of departments in the town have some responsibilities in this new permit.
Oh.
And I have to put together a report every year for the EPA. This is an EPA program. And I put a report together every year for the EPA, and I have to go to different departments such as CONCOM, Fire Department, and whatnot, and get their information. So I put it all together into a report for the EPA for the Phase 2 stormwater. And the requirements are going to increase with this new permit coming out, which is way overdue. It's like 6 years in coming, so they finally have the final draft, and comments are going to go till December 31st, and then it'll be probably 3 or 4 months before it goes into effect. Maybe 6 months, I don't know. It's been going on for a long time. So that's kind of what why I need extra personnel. I did, again, request $10,000 in overtime. The 3-year average in the last 3 years has been about, well, not about, but has $71,948 in overtime for the last 3 years. I'm requesting $10,000 to bring it up to $54,000, which was about what we spent in 2013, and this again is needed to keep up with the demands of the DPW, especially the DPW's overtime with increasing weather events such as wind, rainstorms, which are not accounted for in the budget. Also, we're asked to help out other departments on a regular basis. It takes more and more tasks to keep the town fields, roads, and infrastructure in good repair.
Is your overtime now strictly DPW overtime with no overlap with engineering?
Yes. Yes.
And just for clarity's purposes, I recommended 1 full-time position and the 10,000 of the overtime. That's how you come to my numbers. If you want to do the math, you just take his request, divide it by 3,
his request for personnel, divide it by 3 and add the 10,000 to it. And you'll
What's
see.
the position? I mean, does it have a title?
No.
It would be a PW1, it would be an entry-level title.
Will this allow you to take care of, like, the memorials and Whitney Wharf and the Carlson Memorial and...
We do our best right now to do these things. We have many demands.
I know.
And we try to keep up with them as best we can. Sometimes they don't get done in such a timely fashion as we want, but we will get there and get it done, unless it's an emergency, of course. I really have to see what it's going to take care of any extra memorials. We were fortunate in getting two personnel for Tree and Park, and that took care of all the extra fields we're mowing. So, and that helps out with some of the parks. So that's something we'd have to look at as we go. Just as a note, and I said this last year, as far as overtime goes, special events take up a lot, especially the 4th of July, which happens right in the beginning of the budget cycle. We spend on average $10,000 in overtime just for the 4th of July. And that includes the road race, the parade, and the fireworks. And that's about 22% of our overtime. And then there's also, Christmas in the Square, Taste of Hingham, and other activities which we participate in, touch a truck and whatnot, that, there is some overtime there. So that...
Question on the overtime?
Yes.
I know that Irma mentioned there was some reconfiguring of some budgets in terms of engineering and public works. So are we, for overtime, are we requesting for next year the same amount?
An additional 10,000.
And an additional 10,000.
I'm sorry, it's additional 10,000 from last year, from this year, I'm sorry? Okay, I thought, the reason I was asking, I thought there was some mention about some type of transfer being requested prior to the budget. And I may be wrong on that. I thought you had mentioned something to me. Maybe it was about the budget itself, but...
Or was it all transferred last year?
No, it's a conversation that happened recently, but if I'm mistaken, that's fine.
Yeah, so it's an incremental $10,000 increase to bring him up to more of his regular averages.
No, and I understand that. What I was just trying to, and I don't have the numbers, I was just saying is that part of the DPW overtime budget included a person who will no longer be under that budget for next year, is that right?
We moved a couple of things, but I think it was just really the gas that we moved.
No, there was overtime, too.
That was done the year before.
That's what I think we're trying to figure out.
Okay, so in fiscal 15, the 15 budget, we moved the overtime related to Harry or any other issues related to the assistant project engineer over into that department.
Correct.
So they're already done?
Yeah.
That answers my question.
Yes.
So I don't, okay. I'm sorry, you done?
No, go ahead.
Regarding the fields. So, and it's just more informational, because I'm learning as we go with the rec department. Is there something that we can do to help you guys, your department, with taking care of the fields? And it may be as simple as rec told me, that the fields sometimes wear out, and there's not a lot that can be done. But if there is, short of maybe, changing some of them to turf, obviously, which...
That'd be good.
Which is not necessarily a discussion for tonight, but the bottom line is there something that we can do to help you guys with that?
I'm glad you asked me that, because I have some experience being in coach in baseball for 18 years and in football for 16. In particular, baseball and baseball fields, you can only play on them so much. And as a board member in my town, I've always asked teams and leagues to maintain the fields when they're done, and that takes a lot of maintenance from the DPW or anyone else out of the mix, and then the field is ready to play the next game. As far as like the field out here for soccer and whatnot, they're basically overused. That's why you have to resod them all the time. And Mark and I have gone through this on several occasions on just soccer mouth goals, the goals of the, in that area, because we always had to resod it. So we'd be taking our machine and cutting out from over here and replacing it. And as we talked, he started moving the goal nets around so those areas had a chance to fill in. So I think the basic thing is that they're overused, and they take a beating.
Demand
and they
is
need a
just
rest period.
stripping out our resources. That's why the turf field discussion has to be on the table, because you're going to be at this discussion. I've been doing budgets for 20 years. We've had the same discussions for 20 years.
And I think the master plan will drive us to some of that.
Yeah, and the thing is, you say that, and I'm not saying it's not true, but I haven't been here for the 20 years to discuss it every year. But the point is that when I talk to people who have kids in the programs, they probably haven't been here 20 years either. And they're just noticing, the need, and it's, overuse is certainly the primary reason. I would agree, at least what I can see. But people don't realize that. They're wondering, what can we do? Why is this field not, in the shape we think it should be in? And, obviously that's what could spur a bigger discussion about turf versus grass, at least in some areas.
Well, a personal observation, and I've seen this in Hingham and in my town of Pembroke, is that today's youth just don't play the sport during the time, the season. It's an all, if the weather's good, then they can get out on the field, and if they go out in the field, there's no rest time for the field, and they're getting beat up. I mean, you have spring baseball, summer baseball, and then you have fall baseball. So these baseball fields are getting torn up. So by the time they're not getting played on, it's October, and sometimes even in November, and they're not getting to rejuvenate themselves. Any of the football fields, they're getting soccer played on them. So it's soccer, football, and the soccer, that's all season long too.
That's been the huge change in the industry. I mean, I think most of us were playing. I mean, in the fall you played your fall sports, and then you put them away in the closet, and then you went in the gym, and then you put those away, and you took them out in the spring. But now, in the competition for college scholarships, people are playing their sports year round, and they're on those fields because that's the only way to do it.
And you have the private clubs and leagues.
And also, I think the groups are a lot more inclusive. They're trying to get a lot of people in, and you see every sports organization, not just here in Hingham, but all the way up and down South Shore, they're just bursting at the seams.
And my last question is, in terms of, I didn't see it, but in terms of the work that's done outside of DPW by non-employees, outsourcing, is that in the budget, or is that in a different section?
It's in the budget.
Okay. And how much do we spend a year on that? If you could, maybe someone could point.
On outsourcing?
Right, if someone is doing the work as opposed to, just so I know, because I have no idea.
That depends. That comes out of our road building budget. That really depends on the projects.
Right.
If we are, I don't have an actual cost. I'm sorry, I'm not prepared for that.
No, I know. I wasn't expecting one. I didn't know if it was here because.
No, it's in the budget. It's in this budget.
If you don't have it, why don't you break it out? Because they're going to vote the budgets in January probably, so they have time to get that.
Well, the reason why I'm asking, and it's not that we don't need to outsource some work. I assume that certain work does. But my interest is obviously in terms of, obviously at a reasonable cost, is doing as much work in-house as we can. And from time to time, and I'm no expert, I hear someone say, boy, MWA has a program, they could train people to do this work in-house, we wouldn't have to outsource it. And I don't know if say for example, if that's the case, if we're not doing it because it's just not cost effective, or there's another reason. I'm just trying to get a handle on it.
It depends on the type of work, and I think I know what you're referring to, and that's not cost effective for, basically the manholes. I think speaking of MWRA,
that's one of the ones.
Is a sewer department. If you want, we can wait, or I can answer it now. But some of those jobs that's a confined space entry. And that's special training that our men, they do have, But the work that's done on inside of these basins on some of these projects are specialized. That's where we're not trained. We're trained to enter it, to remove an obstruction or inspect it, but we're not trained to go in and line it, okay? Because sometimes there's special linings because the gases in sewers are corrosive. So we do hire out because it's less expensive. They can get more done in an hour than we can get done in an hour. And they're trained in confined space, and they bring all their own equipment. Now, when they do that, in particular, if I know that's going on, which I do, I will inspect and make sure that they're doing it right. And because I'm trained in confined space and have been for years, and I re-up my training every 2 years. So I'm always out there looking at those types of projects and making sure they're done right. And I do catch some things here and then and fix them because it's a safety issue. But if there's something that we can do and it's cost effective, we certainly will do it, unless we're straight out. And then if there's something, and this goes for any department for that matter, if we are doing something and we're straight out and have our work crews are at 100%, we're out there doing the job, or a job, then we may bring something in if it's a time-sensitive activity.
And I appreciate it, because I don't have a lot of opportunities, and it's my first budget, so I'm just trying to get a sense, and
sure.
And sometimes someone might raise the issue, and they may miss an issue in terms of the training and so forth, so whatever it is, but I'm obviously, in terms of in-town, to the extent we can, I would love to see our employees get to work, obviously, and I'm sure you would too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But at some point, I would like to just know that, if you could, down the line, it's no rush, by the way.
I can bring that up.
Yeah, thank you.
I can get that to you.
Good.
I'll follow up with that, because this has been one of my constant things. Are we bidding out all the jobs that we bid versus a large contract and then just going to that vendor? And are we giving our employees all the opportunities for all the available overtime?
Absolutely.
One thing on the budget I wanted to bring to your attention that I didn't include, I didn't ask Randy to include it, ordinarily he doesn't. Usually it's something we do on our side, but I want to bring it to your attention is that on page 21, Roman numeral 21, is your 10-year history of snow removal. And what we do here is we give you moving 5- and 10-year averages. And what you can see is that your moving 5-year average is 670,000, and your moving 10-year average is 651. So for the first time in a long time, we're starting to see them come together. More importantly, when you look back, you see that quite a few years we have negative numbers, and very few years. As a matter of fact, on this entire spreadsheet, we have 1 year where we had a positive number in this budget. So the budget's in at 504,000. So what we have here is a growing hidden liability, and so I took that into account. That although I haven't added it in yet to the budget, it's something I think you're going to need to address, because the one thing we will spend is whatever we need to spend to achieve the public safety needs of snow removal.
And actually, I go back to 1997, because I started doing this when I was on Capitol. And if you go to 1997, your average is in the high 5s. So it's tracking pretty close. It's growing a little bit because the cost of paying people is growing.
Well, we're about 100,000, we're at 504,000. So, if you look at these averages, we're 150,000 away. If you take an average going back 20 years, then you can lower it a little bit to 600 or so. But still, it's creeping. So I want to point out, these are things that we were very diligent about the last 5 years. It's why we have a strong financial position, is that we have been scouring our books for hidden liabilities so we don't get surprised. And I just wanted to point this out because it's a surprise growing.
Paul?
I have no questions, Randy. Thanks very much for your presentation. Found it very clear.
All right, well then I could take you to your next budget on page 81. It's the landfill budget. And again, if I could summarize the numbers for you. It is a fiscal 15 budget. The current year budget is $1,328,126. The department request for 2016, the base request was $1,331,802. The additional request, and I just want to check this with you, Randy, because I have it as $20,500, and somehow I thought you might have asked for more than that, but I thought that was for a half-time position.
Half-time position,
at the
yes.
landfill, and I approved a half-time position at the landfill, so thank you for making sure that's correct. For a total recommended budget of $1,352,302, $24,176 year over year increase, or a 1.82% increase over last year. Want to give them
Sure. Well, I'm asking for the additional half of an employee to make a full employee. We've been short, I think, since 2009. We've been down one employee because of the financial situation and have made do. We are now getting to the point where the transfer station takes in a lot of things very efficiently, and we have to monitor all these areas. A big one is the composting area, which I do have to mention that with a new scale, it was projected to bring in $25,000 a year. We are now hitting about the $50,000 mark and over. We're bringing in a little over $1,000 a week on the scale. So that's a total success. The other thing I wanted to mention on this budget, and it's pretty much exactly the same as last year other than contractual increases, is that I did have to increase the trash budget incrementally because of construction, demolition, and bulky costs going up. They went up $10 a ton. So it went up incrementally. I think it's maybe a couple $1,000s, but I did want to mention that. And that may be the trend from here on out, although I am working the numbers as much as I can. And we are bringing in, the recyclables are bringing in approximately about $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Yeah.
That's really excellent.
Yeah. I'm working on a new contract as we speak. It may not be as good as what we had. We had a really good contract prior to this.
A question on, I get a lot of questions from people on the transfer station is only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But people see, Thursday, sorry. They see people there at the beginning of the week. Can you kind of talk about what they're doing there?
Monday through Wednesday? Yeah. First of all, the transfer station isn't open to the public, but we do trash. We do the town's trash. We do the town's recycling. We do that twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. We also have the tree and park department going up there and utilizing that area, the composting area, on a regular basis. They have to drop off trees, grass clippings, all types of things. So they're up there utilizing that all the time. I'm up there all the time monitoring it, making sure that everything is running correctly. At times, the transfer station crew comes in. It's probably once a month to do maintenance because they're unable to do it when the station's open, so they have to come in and do maintenance. So you will see them up there, and there's people up there probably every day of the week. Matter of fact, I know there's someone up there every day of the week, but it's on town business. And usually, when the transfer station crew comes in, they were just in there this week because we were grinding. They were in there taking care of all the trash bays, and they're cleaning the grates. And it's part of the Phase 2 stormwater. We got to put something in there to catch the debris so it doesn't get into the stormwater. So they were changing that out, and we're doing that on a regular basis. So if people see people up there on off hours, then that's town business, and we're up there either maintaining the station or another department is utilizing it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well,
just a comment about the swap shop, Randy. I know that's probably seen as a headache by you, but I think it's a great feature that the town has, and I see a lot of people using it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope at some point in the near future we can explore kind of creating a little more rational parking scheme up there. I know this isn't the place, I just throw that out to kind of alert you to kind of what I see when I go up there myself.
Yeah, that's a tough one because of the design of the facility and the amount of space we have. Now, there is a program through the DEP, and it's called the Recycling Dividends Program, which for everything that we do in recycling, they will assign a point to. And it's a survey that I have to make out online and whatnot. And then we submit it to the DEP. So let's say if we have a swap shop that's worth a point, every point has a dollar value. And this year, or the past year, it was $400 a point. So we got around $4,800. It might be $4,800, might be a little bit. I know it was over $4,000. Now you can utilize that money for either trash reduction or an increase in recycling. So I've checked with them, because you have to check with them before you buy something, is that I know a covering for the swap shop is a big thing. It's been a request. I've talked about it at meetings in the Long Range Solid Waste Committee. So my plan is to utilize those funds. And the cheapest way to go about it is to buy a container, and you can have them custom made. So I'm planning to get a large container with garage doors that go up and down and maybe a canopy on front. That's my plan. Now, it costs a lot more than $4,800. But I was just at a meeting for the DEP. They put on a presentation, and they're going to double that money. It's going from $400 a point, $400 a point to $800 a point. So the only thing is the criteria gets a little tougher. So what I'm planning to do is if I have any extra money at the end of the budget cycle, then I'm going to try to apply it to that container. And maybe we can get that container in place. Because if we have a container in that swap shop, then we're eligible for $800. Actually, it will be $1,600 in funds.
Would that help you get volunteers? Because I know it's a problem now. Everybody loves the swap shop, but nobody wants to volunteer.
It could.
It's cold up there.
It could, but in working with we now have a swap shop coordinator, which is working out very nice. There are rules set when we reopened up the swap shop, and there's a temperature limit. So if it's below 30 degrees, then we're supposed to close the swap shop. And we did buy a heater an area heater, which for the swap shop and the volunteers. And we try to keep it open as much as we can. And it's basically up to the volunteers. If they want it, other than adverse weather conditions, if they want to open it, then they're more than welcome. And right now the schedule's between 10 and 2. The only time it wouldn't be able to be open is, again, weather conditions. That's one of the areas that we do have to put snow. So if there is a storm, then usually the swap shop will close. And that's really not a bad thing when the weather's, up and with snow and whatnot, so. That's the swap shop.
That's the swap shop.
Nope.
Okay.
That's it?
No, we have one more budget.
Yeah, one more.
Cool.
Randy will present you with the sewer budget. Again, to orientate you, it is on page 85. The sewer department budget request, current budget for fiscal 15 is $2,316,494. The fiscal 2016 budget request from the department was $2,444,206. There were no additional requests. I recommended that amount for $127,712 increase year over year, and that represents 5.15% increase over the previous year. I want to point out that the biggest increase is coming from a fairly large $34,000 increase in the MWRA, in Hull assessment, and a $57,000 increase in the MWRA assessment.
Was it the $34,000?
$34,000 is an assessment we get from Hull for paying for our water treatment over there.
When we do the budget, we always go to MWRA and Hull to see what their increases are going to be, and we get an estimate. and usually it's, for Hull, it's around a 7% increase, and I was shocked this year when, at the last minute, they said it was going to be, you should put in for about 27%. And the MWA stays stable at anywhere from 3 to 3.5%.
What was the 27?
I have no idea.
So if you recall, the whole treatment plant
Yeah,
had a lot of issues during the
Problem.
summer, so I'm sure that they have some significant capital expenses that they had to recoup.
In this budget, I've increased R&M other. It's basically a maintenance account that we deal with the stations. And I'm trying to build that up to the 3-year average. 3-year average is around 53,000. That's what I'm. It was budgeted at 43,000, so I want to bring it up $10,000. There are other areas that we've dropped down a little bit. The one area that's going to be increased is legal, from 3,000 to 5,000. That was at the request of the commission. They wanted a legal budget, so I did that. And another thing is that, new to the sewer department, well, ever since they've joined the DPW and we're working together, the CDL drivers are now being drug tested. So that's another cost. And I've upped that an incremental $100, but that's for vaccinations and physicals and whatnot. Everything else just remains the same. Other than Steve Dempsey, the supervisor, sewer supervisor, did go from a grade 12 to a grade 13 to bring him up with the other supervisors.
Well deserved, anybody that does his job.
And I did present this budget to the commission, and they did approve it, for your knowledge.
Excellent. 2 questions. How much does the bionics cost us for North Street?
Bioxide.
Bioxide.
That's about $10,000 a year. It's about $2,500 for the actual chemical 4 times a year. And depending on the need, because in the winter we can decrease it, and we don't decrease it. The company comes in and they put odor loggers in the manholes, and they check the levels of hydrogen sulfide and whatnot, and they'll adjust it. So it all depends on the time of year and what the odor loggers say. But it's around $10,000.
Did the issues with the North Sewer District and the MWRA get ironed out, or those are still?
That was all done. We couldn't put in the system. That's all set. The Ship and Cottage Street sewer system, that's all, that has been done, other than some of the paving, and that will be done in the spring or next paving season. But everything else, all the mains have been put in, and we're paying the last set of bills and squaring away the financials with CRL, the contractor.
Cool.
No questions.
No. Okay.
Great.
Before you run, I promised you an email, but I'm going to do it on TV. Thank you to you and Jeff Hanrahan for all the new trees all over town.
You're welcome.
See, at least one person notices. But thank you very much. They're all over the place.
Yes, they are. I think we planted over 100 trees this year. Pretty close to it.
Let's hope Mother Nature is kind.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Have a good Christmas. Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to say anything else?
No.
Oh.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Super. Okay, well, that wasn't too bad. Oh. I'm going to get you vitamins or something. We have...
Still upright.
We have a couple votes. Let me start off with one. In our last executive session, the board reached a settlement on a grievance filed by the Superior Officers Union concerning detail assignments for a member of their union. The board voted at that session to sign a memorandum of agreement with the union. Okay. And let's see. Paul, you want to do the next, or let's have Ted introduce this one. This is the Boy Scout land. Do you want to say anything on that one, Ted?
I don't think I have anything to say. I'm not sure what you're looking for.
Other than that he's not going to let us out of here unless we sign it.
This is the Boy Scout land that was purchased with CPC funds last town meeting, and you have before you the Conservation Commission's vote, which requires your approval before the whole thing can go through.
I'll move that pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8C, the Board of Selectmen approve the Conservation Commission's acceptance of the deed of George Danis, Donald J. Greeley, and Philip Shute, trustees of the Eel River Field Trust, of the property shown as Lot 49 on Assessor's Map 167, and more particularly shown as a lot of land containing approximately 6.24 acres on a plan entitled, quote, Eel River Field Trust, Assessor's Map 167, Lot 49, Hingham, Mass., end quote, dated 11/24/2014, prepared by CHA Companies on terms and conditions set forth in that certain purchase and sale agreement between the Town of Hingham and the Trust, dated November 20th, 2014, and that the Board authorize the Chair to execute such additional documents as may be necessary and proper to consummate the acquisition of such land by the town.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't think you have to read all of these. What do you think? Betty, how do we summarize these?
I think you probably want to make a motion to renew the common victuals as listed on the vote.
Proposed vote list of December 18th.
Sure. So I'll make a motion to renew the annual common vicular licenses listed on the proposed vote.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The next one I've asked not to vote on tonight.
Okay, we'll hold that. Want to do the next one, Paul?
Sure. Move to approve a request from Stars on Hingham Harbor, Cafe Tosca and Tosca for an extension of New Year's Eve operating hours until 2 a.m. on January 1, 2015.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And I'll move to approve a request from the South Shore Lodge number 1850, Sons of Italy in America, for an extension of New Year's Eve operating hours until 1 a.m. on January 1, 2015.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Town Administrator and Selectmen reports. Ted?
The only thing I have to report for you for this week is that I thoroughly enjoyed my first session with the Joint Labor Management Commission today, as they appointed me an alternate member to their body. And it was invigorating to sit there with such an august body, and I hope to work with them. As I understand it, they'll ask me to sit in on labor negotiations throughout the Commonwealth.
Good.
Excellent. Mr. Healy, you want to go first?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to extend congratulations to you for that appointment, Ted, as well as being the recipient of the Patriot Award. I thought that was a great ceremony that we all participated in earlier in the week. It was, I think it's good for morale. In line with that, my little project that I could never do myself, but I've had a lot of good people in the town hall here pitching in to make a very special event for the soldiers that are serving on active duty now. We distributed the flags to the families and soldiers. I delivered to 3 families tonight myself, and in particular to Mr. and Mrs. Leonard, who live on Rhodes Place. They have 2 sons serving, both of whom are overseas. So it was, I felt humbled to present, this token of the town's appreciation And by that, I mean the flag. It's the red flag with the town seal. And I want to thank the women and the men in Town Hall here who've played such a strong role. And I'm going to single them out by name because I think they've worked very hard, and this has been a great project. It's been fun. Andrea Young from the Historical Commission, she coordinated the purchase of the flag and the construction of them through Eagle Flag. Eileen McCracken provided suggestions for what appeared on the certificate, as well as help with the watermark. Jackie Barad from the Treasurer's Office collected the donations and provided me with a list. I made sure that each person who made a donation got a thank you note from me. Jamie Litchfield, the Veteran Service Officer, real gung-ho. And Scott McMillan, real quiet but steady guy, totally reliable, can count on him. Helped put together the packages, delivering them, just making sure everything ran smoothly. Kathy McDonald in Conservation worked on the printing. Sharon from this office helped as well. Steve Becker coordinating with the watermark on the certificate. Kate Richardson took pictures. We had pictures of the flag with the some of the guys and with the cruiser in the background. It's kind of cool. And then to the veterans who have been out and are going out now to the houses of the families. That'd be Scott McMillan, David Sargent, John McHugh, Tom Burbank, and Bob Beal. So it's been a real gung-ho effort. I'd like to thank everybody that's been a part of that. I think it's a great expression of support. And I'm hoping that this is something that we can continue doing into the future so that this becomes a tradition that the town does for the men and women who serve the country in uniform. So thank you for all that. And just in terms of my own self, I wish my colleagues Merry Christmas, one and all, and to you, the townspeople, as well.
Thank you. And it's great work, Paul, on your part, and Merry Christmas to you as well.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, I know it was brought up earlier with the chief and deputy here, but it was a very, very nice event at the South Shore Country Club with the police department put on, taking care of our seniors for a nice meal to celebrate the holidays and Christmas. And I just think that's just a great thing. They were so happy to be there. I enjoyed meeting some of them, catching up with others, and I just enjoy events like that, especially around the holidays. I want to congratulate Ted publicly, because I think it was on HCAM when you received the award, the Patriot Award, but I'll say it again, that's a great honor for you and for your family who was there. It was nice to see them, and for the town. So I will say that. And I will just wish everybody in town a Merry Christmas, and my colleagues and staff and selectmen as well. And I just hope that everybody has a wonderful holiday, and the spirit of Christmas carries over for more than just one day, that maybe for the next few months, maybe the whole year, will be filled with the spirit of giving and all that comes with that.
Cool. Thank you. Well, since I'm last, I still get to congratulate Ted on the Patriots Award.
Thank you very much.
That was a great ceremony. It was great to see Abby home from college.
Yes, it was.
So grown up.
Yes, it was.
It's
Very much
awful.
so.
She's so grown up.
Yeah, she is.
And also the luncheon at the country club was such great fun. And all of the men and women of Hingham Police Department make great servers, and it's just so much fun meeting the senior citizens in town and watching them enjoy. And senior is not such a bad thing these days, really. I've got a couple things. Our own Amy Cowan, she started with Sarah Abbott, Friends of Hingham Harbor, received the Butterfly Award from the Mothers Club. And it's for somebody that did small things that turned into great things. And Friends of Hingham Harbor has certainly done that, and it's wonderful working with Amy and seeing the great things she's done down at the harbor, and I certainly look forward to that in the coming years. She has also launched a new app. She's an engineer by training, by the way, called Hingham Living, and it's a list of service professionals that have come highly recommended by Hingham residents. So if you call Amy or go up on the website and Google Amy Cowan and Friends of Hingham Harbor, you'll find a way to get in touch with her. But it's a really pretty cool thing that she's done there. We're also putting together the committee to begin to work on the Recreation and Fields Master Plan. So if you'd like to let us know that you want to participate, the committee will meet sometime for the first time in January. And we're also looking for a citizen at large to add to the Harbor Task Force. If you're interested in that, please let us know. We'll talk about that and vote on the citizen at large and the committee on a whole early in January. And the last thing I have is to thank Captain Bill Powers of the Hingham Fire Department for the safety tips that he puts in the Hingham Journal. He's been doing this all year, but his holiday tips are the best. And I hope everybody has had an opportunity to read them. I just read the first week in December's Hingham Journal, which is how I found it. But he's been doing this for about 3 years, about once a month. He writes something. It's a monthly feature, so in January, his feature is going to be on brush burning. But he does a nice job, and there's lots of little tips that we forget. So before I read the final statement, I too want to wish, as my colleagues, a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to everyone, and hopefully the spirit of Christmas will last the whole year. And hopefully everybody gets lots of presents. Love that part.
I already got my gift.
You did? I don't want to know.
I'm not telling
I
you.
tried.
As long as it makes you happy.
Oh, yeah, it makes me ecstatic.
Ditto.
It makes me
Ditto.
ecstatic.
Okay. I recommend the board enter executive session to discuss strategy with regard to 1, collective bargaining, and 2, real estate negotiations with Boston Golf, because discussion of these matters in open session could be detrimental to the negotiating position of the town. The board will not resume open session for this evening.
Aye.
Aye. Good night and happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas.